Hey y'all, I'm Ada K. And I must confess, I'm a trial junkie. I enjoy viewing trials as if I was the seated juror. So grab a cup of java, get comfy, and join me as we hop into court. And don't forget to comment, like, and most importantly, subscribe. And if you're really enjoying the channel, please join our membership. Hello. Good morning, afternoon, whatever time it is. I'm here. By the skin of my teeth. Y'all, you have no idea. No idea. It has been a day. Hi, Toy. Don't feel gorgeous, but thank you, love. Well, we've had a disastrous morning. Go to the doctor. Headed home. That went well. Flu shot. COVID shot. Shingles vaccine. Pneumonia shot. Yeah, I got shut up. And then I got other tests to do. But I get a call as soon as I land and back into town because I have to go out of town for my doctor. And I'm told our tree fell over in our backyard and landed our neighbor's power line. Yeah. Don't know when it fell. Hey, Zach. I don't know when it fell. So I got to find somebody to cut up a tree. Anybody want free firewood? Go start cutting. Hey, Zach, you want some firewood? You got a chainsaw? Hi and bye. Aw, Haley Mouse. Love to see you. Hello, Toxic. Hi, Ronnie. Hi, Toy. It's been a day. Yeah. Hey, 80s Music Man. How's everybody doing? So, where's my background? Why is it all black? Kind of like it, though. We don't have a lot going on, but we did start watching the Georgia versus Phyllis Owens. I can't say his name. So we're gonna hop back into that. We got almost to the end of day 2. So we're just gonna start at day 3. Everybody. Hello, thank y'all for joining. So we're gonna get going on this. And then I should know better by now. And then I'm going to be looking for other stuff as well. Like I said, I literally just slithered into my desk.
Now, the detectives who are assigned to the homicide unit.
This is the gentleman, loosely. Owens is accused of malice unaliving and a felony unaliving of the death of an 8-year-old Emery's mother. Okay, my ears are cracking out. Brittany Hall was also indicted by a grand jury. So that's where we are. See you in a few hours, love. Once it's going, I've got to get me some lunch.
Facts and circumstances of that specific scene.
Yes.
Now, back in November of 2021, were you called out to the hometown studios located at 7049 Jimmy Carter Boulevard?
Is
Yes, I
this,
was.
And what was the nature of
please tell me the sound is
call
smooth
that
on
you
your end.
responded to?
I was informed that it was a missing child.
Now, when
Hi,
you
Haley.
arrived at the location, was the scene cordoned off anyway? Describe what you walked into.
Yes, so when I arrived on scene, they had yellow tape up on the exterior of in the hallway to apartment or room 251. There was actually yellow tape up.
So this would prevent the public from having access.
I'm
in and out
100%
of that
gained.
Specific area.
Yes,
Now, room 251, is that the room that you actually went into and actually process as well?
yes.
I'm going to tender into evidence, Judge, State's Exhibit number 71, which is a copy of the certified copy of search warrant 21X01402, specifically to search the premises of room 251 of the Hometown Studios located at 7049 Jimmy Carter Boulevard for the purposes of the record only.
Now remember why I didn't like this trial.
Thank you. Ms. Johnson, you entered the room pursuant to that search warrant which authorized your access, is that right?
Yes.
All right,
Thanks.
Tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury
Mari?
when you began the process of processing.
So usually what we do first is we do a walkthrough, and often we walk through with the detectives and we just observe what is already out. We see anything that we might want to go ahead and document and collect prior to searching anything. Once we conduct that walkthrough, I then start doing overall photography before anything is removed or touched.
And is that what you did in this case?
Yes.
Are you there by yourself as far as crime scene's concerned, or are there other technicians also?
I did have another technician with me on this case.
Okay. Now, I want to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 72 all the way through 91. They have been previously shown to defense counsel. Can you just generally tell us what we're looking at?
These are photographs that I obtained from within the residence at 251.
Anything about that that seems to be altered or deleted in some manner from your recollection of the room that day?
No.
Okay. Judge, at this time, we would move to tender into evidence State's Exhibit 72 all the way through 92.
All right, you said through 91 before, so I want to make sure it's.
Let me double check, Judge. I apologize, Judge. There's actually 92. It'll be all the way to exhibit number 92, and I have previously shown those to defense counsel as well.
That's correct, Judge. We've seen them, no objection.
Admitted without objection.
Thank you, Judge. At this time, I would move to tender in some of those photographs, or excuse me, publish some of those photographs.
Granted.
Thank you. All right. Now I am showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 72 and 73.
I want us to watch this. This may be a case we watch. I don't know if y'all have heard about this. I'm not, it's my first time hearing about this. So let's do that. No, I'm Central. I apologize. Okay, let's do this because this court.
Joining me now in studio with all the latest
Trying to figure out how to up the sound.
is Court TV crime and justice correspondent Matt Johnson.
Michael, good evening. This is a shocking case out of South Carolina involving multiple wives, a secret love child, and a burned body. And now one of the wives wants out of jail.
Judge, I don't know how we got here today. And I want you also to know that Kendall is heartbroken over the loss of Jessica. Even though it was a weird, strange dynamic, she loved her like a sister. Kendall did what she had to do to keep her baby alive, to keep herself alive, and to keep her grandfather alive.
Wow.
Kendall Mims, Victoria Tippett, and Brandon Barnes are all charged in connection of the murder with Jessica Barnes. Police say the victim was strangled to death by her husband back in August. Her remains were later found weeks after searching for her.
There's 3 total co-defendants. They took the body down to a location near Lake Hartwell, and they disposed of the body by burning the body in a plastic tote. Ms. Mims served as a lookout during the burning of the body, and she also was just intimately involved in the process of getting rid of the body.
Now Mims' defense team is claiming that she was a victim of emotional and sexual abuse. Her family making this emotional plea to the judge. Take a listen.
My sweet daughter was also a victim who happened to survive this monster, his path of destruction. He was abused and tortured in every possible way, just trying to survive. She had to fight for not only her life, but her precious child's life.
Kendall, a quiet, naive spirit, introverted, and finding it hard to speak up for herself, became a victim of a narcissist sociopath who deceived her, came into our home and stole her away as he has done to so many others. Please have mercy and let our girl come home from this tragedy. Thank you.
Just part of the powerful emotional statement to the judge made by Mims' family. The victim's family was also in court for this hearing yesterday, this hearing that we're about to watch, Michael.
All right. Thank you so much, Matt. Truly appreciate it, as always. All right, folks, now we're going to follow that hearing from the beginning in South Carolina. We learned the case started off as a missing persons report. So let's get into that courtroom.
October 1st, Ms. Mims was charged with obstruction and misprision of a felony and obstruction and accessory after the fact. Brandon Barnes is her co-defendant, is charged with murder. Ms. Mims' involvement is after the murder took place, Ms. Mims assisted with disposing of the body and concealing that the crime had taken place. There's 3 total co-defendants. They took the body down to a location near Lake Hartwell, and they disposed of the body by burning the body in a plastic tote. Ms. Mims served as a lookout during the burning of the body, and she also was just intimately involved in the process of getting rid of the body. So that's our factors as to danger to the community. As to flight risk, during the investigation, during the missing persons investigation, Mrs. Mims, Mr. Barnes, and the 3rd co-defendant, Victoria Tippett, they took off from South Carolina all the way out to Colorado, and they were out in Colorado debating whether they should try and flee law enforcement. They ultimately decided to return to South Carolina. Also, as to flight risk, on the night of the incident, Ms. Mims and her co-defendants were down in Georgia, presumably, according to law enforcement, looking for a place to dispose of the body, even though it ultimately was disposed of in Pickens County. And the last prong to flight risk is that Ms. Mims' family is from North Carolina, so she's got out-of-state contacts in North Carolina. And she also has a history with Mr. Barnes, the defendant charged with murder. She has a history of basically up and leaving her family and losing all contact with them. which we think is concerning to flight risk. And if I could go back to danger to the community one time, Your Honor. She also has a small child. I believe Ms. Wise said that
9
the
months.
child was 9 months old, currently is 9 months old. The small child was present at the time of the murder, and the small child was allowed by Ms. Mims to continue to live with Mr. Barnes for weeks after the murder, which we thought was an extreme danger to that child. So, Judge, that's why the state would oppose bond at this time.
Is there a representative of the victim standing that wishes to address the court?
Yes, Your Honor, the victims are present and law enforcement from the Pendleton Police Department are present, but
Let me hear you that the state wants to present on the murder of Ms. Wise.
they're just present. They do not want to present. They don't want to speak to the court.
All right. Ms. Wise?
Thank you, Your Honor. May it please the court. Standing in front of you is Ms. Kendall Mims. Your Honor, her family is present in the courtroom, and at the appropriate time, her mother, father, and grandfather would like to address this court. Judge, Kendall is 20 years old. She is the mother to a 9-month-old baby. She is a sweet, gentle, kind young lady. I know you've just heard terrible, terrible things about her. But that is not an indication at all of her real character. She is a loving mother, and she fell victim to Brandon Barnes, as did so many other women. Judge, he has a history of domestic violence. There are other women who were able to flee and get away from him. Unfortunately, Kendall and Jessica were not that lucky. Kendall is quiet. She's used to not being the center of attention. And she met Brandon online right at 2 years ago. He love bombed her. He told her she was beautiful, that she was the most perfect thing in the world, that no one understood him the way that she did. He gave her attention. He showered her with affection. And she fell for it hook, line, and sinker, Judge. She did. She absolutely did. However, when she did leave North Carolina to go live with Brandon in Georgia, things took a turn for the worse. He assaulted her for the first time. And then, of course, he came back to her and said it would never happen again, that he couldn't live without her. Please don't leave him. Once again, she fell for his lies and his deception. Soon thereafter, she became pregnant. And when that happened, she was trapped. She thought that staying with Brandon would provide a stable home for their child. She was raised to think two parents needed to be in the home.
I'll be right back.
And even though it wasn't perfect, she was trying hard to make it for her daughter. She eventually ended up in a pool house that was restructured into basically a small apartment, maybe about 400 square feet, where her grandfather lived in Pendleton. Judge, Brandon destroyed the inside of the pool house. He killed several animals and would tell Kendall that.
So Kendall Mims is charged as an accessory after the fact. She's seeking bond to get out of jail while she awaits trial. Two considerations for the court: risk to the community and risk of flight. That's what the court has to consider. All right, we'll take a break. When we come back, we're going to continue to listen to more of that hearing for one of the defendants in the secret lover murder plot in South Carolina. So keep it here on Court TV, your front row seat for justice.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, a ghost gun and a manifesto found with the suspect in the United Healthcare CEO shooting. We're unpacking everything we've learned from this investigation.
Closing Arguments, tonight at 8/7 Central, only on Court TV. This week,
join us each morning to get trial ready for the day's proceedings. Plus, a closer look at true crime cases with a voice for victims.
opening statements with Julie Grant, weekday mornings at 8/7 Central on Court TV.
All right, folks, we're going to get you back to that bond hearing in just a moment. But first, let's bring in our guest for this hour. Joining us is former federal prosecutor Nima Rahmani. Nima, great to see you. Thank you so much, as always, for joining me on the program. And I want to pick your brain as a former prosecutor and call on that experience, because my question is, and I want to go back to the original charging decision. Some of the facts of this case are that, in fact, she did not witness the killing. She was involved in this sort of, love triangle. She had a child with him. So that kind of stuck her to the situation. She seemed like a victim, or at least the claim by the defense. She was a victim of self-defense. She did ultimately help get rid of the body. Is it always form to charge someone like that for their involvement in a case, considering some of the facts in this case? Or do you look deeper and try to find ways to connect them to the crime that they, I guess, had some intent to commit it?
Well, it's a question of whether you charge them, or ultimately here's someone that you want to cooperate against the murderer, right? So sometimes you'll bring them in and maybe see how much information they provide, but ultimately they are a precipient witness to this body being burned. So it is a crime. It is accessory after the fact to murder. It's misprision of a felony, which is essentially covering up a felony. So there's someone who's guilty of a felony. Now, of course, is she the primary target of the prosecution or the investigation? Absolutely not. But here's someone you want to lean on. You want to make sure they flip against their lover.
All right, so you have all that. Let's say she agrees to testify. The trial's coming up. She wants bond. Now, I know generally what the bond considerations are: risk to the community, risk of flight. As a prosecutor, what are you arguing against someone like this, a young lady with a child by, I guess, the main defendant in this case, young girl, probably under his thumb on some level? How are you arguing against her getting freedom in this case?
How am I arguing, or why am I arguing? I think the why is because, why? Probably because she hasn't flipped yet. And I mean, the practical reality is prosecutors like people in custody. Doesn't matter whether it's Diddy, doesn't matter whether it's this young woman, because you have a lot more leverage over them. It's much easier to get a plea out of someone who's in custody, or cooperation, which is what they want here. Now, as far as the law is concerned, like you said, Michael, really the standard for bail is someone who's not a risk of flight or a danger to the community. So sometimes, and I'm not saying this prosecutor, sometimes prosecutors argue for no bail because it does give you more leverage over someone that you're trying to get a plea deal signed or cooperation out of.
Yeah, fair enough. But it's not a factor whether she's agreeing to testify for the prosecution. But that may play into the factor that you will argue that she needs to be kept in jail. Totally get it. All right, stand by, Nima. We're going to go back to court now. In that South Carolina courtroom where a young mother is facing charges in a love triangle turned deadly, Kendall Mims is hoping to get pretrial release. So again, let's get back in there and listen.
The cat choked itself on a hair tie. And, I was moving the couch and I didn't realize the cat was in it.
Sorry, guess, Gabby.
Kendall
was
is
another wife,
incapable
I
of these
believe.
kinds of things. And so
I
she never
believe.
imagined that the father of her child would be as well.
It's a love triangle.
The physical abuse included hitting, pushing, strangling several times. He sexually abused her. He forced those women, Jessica included, to perform sex acts on him and together. She was humiliated. She was belittled. She was tortured. Because he kept telling her that if she left, if she said a word, he was going to kill her daughter. He threatened to kill her grandfather. He threatened to kill her family members, and he threatened to kill her repeatedly. When she was 4 weeks postpartum, he told her she had to go back to work. She worked 2 jobs. 4 weeks after giving birth, he wouldn't allow her to breastfeed. Instead, he wanted the victim of this case to breastfeed their child. He took her money from her. He used her credit cards. He emptied many of her accounts. He destroyed everything that she had. He destroyed the relationship that she had with her family. Standing here in front of you right now is a shell of the young woman who she used to be. I don't even think she understands how much of a victim she is from Brandon. I also want you to know, Judge, I am the one who told her that Brandon admitted and confessed to killing Jessica. She did not know. They told her over and over again, Miss Tippett and Barnes, she killed herself, she killed herself, she killed herself. He wouldn't allow her to have any contact with her grandfather, even though he lived like 100 feet away. He wouldn't allow her grandfather to have any contact with her child. He controlled every single thing she did. When he was working, he would make her go sit there so that he could keep an eye on her while he was at work. Judge, I don't know how we got here today. And I want you also to know that Kendall is heartbroken over the loss of Jessica. Even though it was a weird, strange dynamic, she loved her like a sister. Kendall did what she had to do to keep her baby alive, to keep herself alive, and to keep her grandfather alive. The people that she worked with spoke to the police. They told them that she would come to work with marks all over her. She was so scared of him. He wouldn't let her take the baby to work. That baby was with him unless she was there. She couldn't get away from him. Since she's been incarcerated, she's started experiencing stroke-like symptoms. She's lost the feeling in the right side of her body. She's doing a lot better today. But there's a tightening or a shortening of the carotid artery in her neck, which is indicative of a stroke. It could be caused by strangulation. I do have her medical records present with me today if you would like to see them. Judge, we ask that you would give her a bond. She needs to be home with her child. Her 81-year-old grandfather lives alone in Pendleton, and while he is a good man, he alone is responsible for taking care of a 9-month-old. Kendall desperately wants to get home to her baby so that she can bond with her and be the mother that that child deserves. At this time, Judge, her family would like to address the court.
All right, we're going to step aside here and take a break. But before we do, we have an update from Vermont, where court ended early today in the Van life and death murder trial. Joseph Ferlazzo is accused of fatally shooting and then dismembering his wife, Emily, while the two were up vacationing, celebrating their first anniversary. Emily's family reported her missing when he returned from their trip alone, claiming that Emily left after they got into an argument. However, during a police interrogation, Ferlazzo confessed to killing Emily and dismembering her body. He's charged with first-degree murder. Now, he has pleaded not guilty, and his attorney argues that his statements were not voluntary and that he shot his wife in self-defense. Now, before court ended today, the jury heard from a DNA analyst who testified that Emily's DNA was found on several items, including the defendant's knives.
You were also able to conclusively match to the saw blade, which was item A13.
Yes.
And then the reddish brown stain on the underside of the shower, which was item A14.
Yes.
And then 3 saw blades. Is that correct?
Hi, Rachel. Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry, knives.
I'm going to zoom past this.
Yes.
Because
A16.
Yes.
And A17.
Yes.
Now, the state's case is expected to wrap up tomorrow, and then we'll find out whether or not
He's
defendants are all
guilty.
charged in connection to the murder of Jessica Barnes. Police say the victim was strangled to death by her husband back in August. Her remains were found weeks later. Well, now Mim's defense team is claiming that she's basically a victim of emotional and sexual abuse. Her family making this emotional plea to the judge, and we're going to hear from that in just a minute. But I want to get you back into court where her grandfather is going to be speaking.
Jeez, this is tough, y'all.
What's happened to Jessica and others involved. One day I was passing the pool house and heard cussing and yelling.
While he was passing the pool house, he heard cussing and yelling. He looked to see what was going on. Brandon was directing his outrage at Kendall. I opened the door to tell Brandon he couldn't talk to my granddaughter that way. He stopped at the time, but a week or so later, he came out in the yard and he told me that I was lucky to be alive. Brandon would not allow us to visit with Kendall at all. In fact, when she came into the house, she had to have her phone on the entire time so that he could hear everything she was doing and everything that was being said. My wife's retirement picture from Redfern had been hanging in the bedroom for over 20 years. I noted it was missing and asked Brandon where he had put it. He said that he put it in the corner because the glass had busted out. He also busted out the 55-inch flat screen TV I had in the bedroom. I later found it behind a warehouse. The microwave was also busted up and behind the warehouse as well. There are also 4 doors that are damaged, and these are just a few examples of Brandon's explosive emotions, his lack of control, and his disrespect for others. He burned several holes in the carpet, saying that it was always an accident. Due to our mistrust of Brandon, when he asked me to help him get cars to go to work, I was fearful that he would take off with Kendall and her daughter. We might never see them again, so I had trackers installed on the cars. I also had Ring cameras on my house, and I told the police about the cameras and turned over all of that information to them. I assumed that helped them find Jessica. Brandon required Kendall to wear headphones so that he could hear everything she said. He also required Kendall, her daughter, and others to come sit at work so that he would have complete control over her. He also had control over the cash in the house. And in July, August, and September, Kendall earned over $5,700, deposited it into her account, and then he transferred it out, at least $5,000, to his own Apple account. I considered this financial abuse.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, Your Honor. I am Teresa Mims, mother of Kendall Mims. As awful as the story is, and that we are so sorry that this tragedy ever took place, my sweet daughter
Sorry
was
for the
also a
buzzing.
victim who happened to survive this monster, his path of destruction. Kendall is the surviving triplet who has been fighting for her life since she was born at 2 pounds and 8 ounces. I've already lost one child, and I honestly cannot stand to lose my only daughter. Over the past year and a half, I have watched this monster, Brandon, love on my daughter and slowly slip away her life as if he had a noose around her neck. And pulling it so tightly until she was just a shell of a human. I watched my beautiful, loving, innocent, sweet-spoken daughter, who's never been in trouble in her life, transform her hopes and dreams of becoming a biomedical engineer to help design prosthetics for veterans, to a shell of person who was abused and tortured in every possible way, just trying to survive. She had to fight for not only her life, but her precious child's life, but also her granddad's, her brothers, mom, and her dad. I knew from the very start that Brandon was pure poison, and we did everything in our power to keep him from taking her from our loving family. He was instead a thief who came to steal, kill, and destroy, because he did that. I saw him cut off her communication with family and friends, humiliate her, and demean her in every possible way. He even cut off her ability to have her EpiPen and antihistamines to help prevent her from going into possible anaphylaxis, since she had a chronic idiopathic urticaria diagnosis. He even had her catatonic-like, where she could not sit on comfortable furniture, eat her favorite foods, or take warm showers, because she feared she would have to get used to his way of life again. He controlled her move in every way, including telling her she could not make any noises during childbirth. And he bragged about this fact.
All right, we're going to wrap up this hearing and have the judge's decision when we return. So keep it here on your front row seat to justice.
Tonight on Closing Arguments, a ghost gun and a manifesto found with the suspect in the United Healthcare CEO shooting. We're unpacking
ability to get.
Okay, let's come back
to ask you about some of the arguments. Suspect
in the United Healthcare CEO.
So what they believe is a lack of evidence that she did anything wrong. And although that's not a particular consideration for this court, in some jurisdictions it is, but it does play into the risk of flight.
He's going to be on trial too, I believe.
It does, but they should really be focusing on those two elements. Really, they're presenting a mitigation case, talking about how the defendants, they too were victims, but that's usually something that's appropriate for sentencing if someone accepts responsibility, getting into the facts. I think what the defendants should focus on is their ties to the community. The fact that they weren't involved in the underlying murder and how they might have been pressured to help cover it up. But as family members, we will do everything we can to ensure their appearance at trial. That's what the judge is looking for, not this sob story as to how they too were victims.
That was her mother.
We're really talking about a murder case here.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, let's get back into court now. Stand by, Nima. The rest of that bond hearing for Kendall Mims in the secret lover murder plot in South Carolina. We're going to listen now to the judge's decision.
I don't know. Their volume is horrible.
There's obvious disagreement between the parties as to the facts of the case. At this point, I'm going to deny bond.
He denied bond.
We'll allow this to be revisited in 90 days, give the attorneys time to get reports back so that you may be able to flesh the facts out. So that'd be the order at this time.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Judge.
Sorry, Judge.
Wow.
All right, so the judge denies bond. It was actually the second time that bond was denied for that young lady. Let's bring back in our guest still with us, Nima Rahmani. Really no surprise there, not just based on the fact that I agree with you, I thought some of the arguments presented by the defense were sort of a bit misguided for this particular hearing. But again, she was involved in a very, very serious crime.
Exactly, Michael. And I think at this point, the defense needs to have a serious talk with their client about cooperation because, in these murder cases, it can get very dicey. You push the case to trial. Sometimes you get wrapped into it, and we don't know if the evidence is there as a co-conspirator, as an accessory, as an accomplice. And all of a sudden, you're on the hook for the substantive murder. I'm not saying we're going to end up there, but this is really a roll of the dice. You can gain a lot from cooperating. Oftentimes, again, if you're the prosecution, you want to pin the murder on the actual murderer or the person who's most at fault. So this is an opportunity for cooperation, but sometimes, and I've seen it time and time again, especially with these vulnerable female defendants, they're loyal to the murderer, loyal to a fault, but they really should be saving themselves at this point.
She may not be cooperating at the moment, but there is another person involved. This is a love triangle. And the other person is testifying, and that person was much more involved in terms of they actually were witness to the killing itself and was involved in the cover-up, and they're charged as well. Do you really need both under these circumstances?
You don't need both if you're the prosecution, but of course you like to have both. Obviously, you want the more witnesses, the better. And it's even more reason for Mims to cooperate because oftentimes the first person to cooperate gets the benefit of the cooperation because prosecutors need it the most. So now you're going to be stuck in a position where you're along for the ride. If you're this co-defendant, Mims, you're trying to get the case severed, of course. But the last thing you want to do is try together with his murderer with a third defendant cooperating against you both. Really tough case to defend. So I think Mims need to really start thinking about cooperating sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Nima, quite frankly, the fact that she's reluctant to help out with the prosecution kind of plays into the argument that maybe she was more involved in this than they're claiming at this point. The fact, if everything they said was true, I think she'd be jumping out of her shoes to testify against it.
Oh, potentially, yes. And that's why it's very risky and dangerous to go along for the ride. And here's someone that can easily be dirtied up at trial because the jurors might think, well, she knows more than she's admitting to, and she's trying to minimize her role in all this. And like you said, there's a love triangle, and there's a third defendant who's implicating both of them. But it's interesting. I've seen it even as a prosecutor, and I handle more than 1,000 cases, but more than 1,000 defendants in prison. I did see a handful of cases where there were people for emotional reasons. They refused to take the rational route and cooperate against someone who was a co-defendant. Maybe they were in a physical or sexual relationship with that person. And it can cause people to make bad decisions because usually, and this is coming from a former prosecutor, when the deck is stacked against you and there's really these potential serious charges, the rational route is to flip, to cooperate. That's what the vast majority of criminal defendants do. So hopefully she sees the light sooner rather than later.
Yeah, and again, she has a child with him. That could play into it. Who knows what her thinking is? She's a young lady. All that we heard from the defense in this hearing, a lot of that, obviously, they're going to try to get into trial. What effect will it have on her culpability for the crime if they start bringing in evidence that he was in fact controlling and he did all these different things that really we see women who are being abused have to deal with? And again, she's younger, and she was described as what? A couple of people she had. She was quiet, naive, sweet, kind, and gentle.
I think that will have to be the defense in this case. And we've seen it. When you have these co-defendant cases, you got to point the finger at another co-defendant. It's going to be very hard for Mims to say that she had nothing to do with this at all. Again, when there's witness testimony that's going to put her at the scene when this body was murdered, obviously you got the motive because this is the ex-wife of the alleged murderer. So, you will see this finger pointing, but the prosecution's job and what they're going to try to do is keep this case together, keep all the individuals involved, because sometimes it's hard for jurors to kind of slice it that thin. We're going to say, well, yeah, you're there, you must have known something, right? Although the jury instructions said that this is an accessory after the fact, sometimes jurors, when they see a gruesome murder and a body that was burned like this, they're just inclined to throw the book at everyone and return guilty verdicts across the board. You know, you don't see split verdicts often in a case like this. That's why, unless there's some sort
I
of
don't know.
severance
We
motion
need to
that's
figure that
granted,
out. I don't
this is
even know where this
potentially going to end very
happened.
badly for her.
Yeah, I would have to agree. A lot more to play out in this case. We'll be watching, of course, Nima.
Yeah, I have no idea. No idea. That. Okay, I do want to see this.
Where we're learning more details that could have played a part in the fatal shooting of Judge Kevin Mullins.
Sheriff Sean Mickey Steins is accused of fatally shooting Mullins in his chambers following an argument. We've seen the video of this happening. Now we're learning about other alleged crimes that took place in those judicial chambers prior to the shooting.
Joining us now in studio with the very latest, Court TV field reporter Cody Thomas. Cody, boy, this case has gotten everyone's attention from the very beginning, and now it's getting even deeper. What can you tell us?
Well, good afternoon, Ted and Julia. We may now have more insight into what was truly going on behind those closed doors in the Letcher County Courthouse. Newly obtained audio recordings from a police interrogation allege Judge Kevin Mullins engaged in sextortion acts inside the same chambers where he was killed. The recordings are from a 2022 criminal investigation into Letcher County Deputy Ben Fields, who was convicted and sent to prison earlier this year for the rape and sodomy of a female inmate. The woman heard on the recordings is victim Sabrina Atkins, who has been publicly vocal about her claims against the convicted deputy, using his position of power to pressure her and other women to have sex in exchange for favorable treatment. But she says Judge Mullins was involved as well.
But he does have some videotapes of some stuff in the judge's chambers.
What kind of stuff?
Just with girls, sexual and stuff.
What describe? Have you seen the videos?
I've seen one partly, just him having sex with girls to further be able to get out of jail.
Who was having sex?
Ben and just some higher ups up there.
Who?
The judge and.
Now you saw the video.
Yeah.
What did you see on the video? I mean,
I've seen Judge Mullins have sex with a girl.
Who was the girl?
I don't know. Because I don't know a lot of people from up
Where was it at?
in his office, in the judge's chambers.
Is that the same place that you were meeting Ben? Is that how you know it was the judge's chambers? And this was Judge who?
Mullins.
Now, Atkins' attorney has gone on record saying, quote, "It's like they were running a brothel out of that courtroom." And Atkins, along with another woman, filed a civil rights lawsuit against the deputy. Sheriff Steins was also named in the lawsuit, and he was deposed in the ongoing suit days before shooting Mullins back in September. But further in those recordings, Atkins can be heard saying Sheriff Steins was involved in the sexual scandal as well.
But you saw the video of the judge. Any other video that you actually saw?
No. They say that the Sheriff Mickey Steins is involved. I don't know.
Who said that?
Chad, he said he had videos with Mickey. And Mickey used to do the same thing when he was over house arrest.
Now, of course, Ted and Julia, these are extremely heinous allegations against Sheriff Steins and the late Judge Mullins. And as of now, we do know Steins has pleaded not guilty to murder regarding that shooting.
Cody, this is shocking information to come out. We have heard about the litigation that was going on, but now to hear this victim make these allegations, it's interesting. What else are we hearing from alleged victims? Is it anyone other than this particular
Candace
woman?
Hoff, how are you?
Well, Julia, Ned Pillersdorf,
Welcome.
the attorney representing Sabrina Atkins, heard on those recordings. He joined Court TV last night talking about a time when he went in front of Judge Mullins for their civil rights suit and asked Mullins to recuse himself due to those sexual acts occurring in his chambers. Here's what he said happened.
I briefly appeared in front of Judge Mullins, and I said, with all due respect, Judge, I think you need to recuse from this court hearing because we have filed a lawsuit in which we've alleged that the dastardly sex acts occurred in your chambers. At that point, it was about a 1-minute hearing. And if you read the transcript, it doesn't sound that bad, but Judge Mullins protested and pointedly assured me he could be fair and impartial and he didn't need to recuse. And of course, I had an ethical obligation to my client. I said, I think you should recuse. And Judge Mullins did recuse. We had a 1-minute hearing. As a result of that, and this is just me, I felt so uncomfortable that day with what he said. I have declined to ever go back to his court again. I've been offered to represent other people in Judge Mullins' court, and I just said after that experience, I didn't want to do it.
Ted and Julia, aside from the civil rights lawsuit, Sheriff Steins could face the death penalty in Kentucky if convicted of that murder charge.
That is
Totally. I love Vinny's face because it kind of sums up everyone's reaction to the details of this.
Details, exactly.
It's crazy what was allegedly.
It was already a crazy incident, and that has just shocked so many people, but it seems to continue to add those layers. Cody Thomas, thank you so much for your reporting on this. We're going to bring back in our analyst who is joining us now, criminal defense attorney Alan Kagawa. Alan, what should happen in Letcher County, do you think, right now? I mean, we're talking about multiple layers, many people who were being accused, and now it's almost as if this killing of the judge is putting an additional light on what may have been happening inside of that system.
Yeah, absolutely. I think first off, I think there needs to be a big investigation just into this. Significant concern here is if there was potentially some sort of ring or something like this going on, there's a concern that, you may need to get an outside authorities to prosecute this case and to take a look at this. It's just an absolute embarrassment to the legal system.
Yeah, and it just, I can't imagine if you live in this county and this is coming out, you have a sheriff killing a judge in his chambers, and then these claims that this whole thing was all about these guys having, having sex with these women, using their power. Say, hey, you want to get out on bail? Well, guess what? You have to do this it is horrendous, and the public there cannot have a lot of confidence in the system.
I wouldn't. Y'all, bad. This is bad. What's going on with the world today? Okay, I want to see this because I hadn't seen it.
New attorneys. Jackie Fulford and Josh Zellman
Adelson.
replaced her former counsel, Donna, previously represented by Daniel Rashbaum, who also represented Donna's son, Charlie, you might remember, at his murder trial. And that became the problem, right? Remember, the day before Donna's trial was set to start, Rashbaum withdrew from the case. There was a conflict of interest, a very glaring conflict, and his co-counsel dismissed for the same reasons, because of what you can't do, your partner can't do. Now, the judge ruled that the new attorneys can't even use the investigators that the previous team used. This is interesting. Take a listen.
Because of your order disqualifying, we have not even spoken with the investigators that were previously retained because we did not want to create a conflict.
I can speak to the investigators in camera if you desire, but at the moment, it's probably best to consider them the fruit of the poisonous tree.
Donna Adelson is accused in the murder of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell, a beloved father and professor, an all-around wonderful guy, according to many friends who have spoken to this network about him. And this is all about justice for him. That's been a long time in coming. So we're wondering now, as we look ahead to Donna Adelson's trial, how's this new legal team going to tip the scales for her? Let's bring in our guest. Wait, it's the morning of high-profile attorneys. Want to welcome in former prosecutor, now he's in the private sector, attorney Randolph Rice. Randolph, good morning to you. What do you think about Mama Donna having some brand new counsel for trial?
Sorry, Mama
she
Donna?
had to do this. Obviously, there was the conflict because of her previous attorney representing her son, and he would have had too much information that could have been a conflict against her case. And I think the judge certainly made a good point of saying, hey, not only are the lawyers tainted, but also the investigators, because it's that fruit of the poisonous tree, a common term we use in the legal field. it is certainly going to be tough for her moving forward because of the fact that they're a little bit behind the 8 ball. They've got a lot on their plate to have to sort of catch up with such a short period of time. So they've got their work cut out for them.
They sure do. You're right, Randolph. And we know that the judge is going to keep them on a tight schedule. This case has been lingering, as you know, and the judge really wants to get it on track. We have a clip. This is kind of cute. The judge, when asked about the scheduling matters, had a kind of a funny response. Let's take a listen.
That trial period would have been June the 16th to July the 2nd. Not sure if Your Honor would be able to make that available to us, but that's when we all were available to try the case.
I would need to check my personal calendar because we all answer to someone and I answer to Mrs. Everett.
Yes, sir.
Whether or not I'm available the first week of July, I cannot tell you at the moment, but I will check.
All right, so he may be the Honorable Stephen Everett, and he wears the robe, but Mrs. Everett is the boss at home, apparently. So he also indicated he doesn't want the trial to be delayed any further. Let's take a look at that clip.
There's too much logistics that are involved with moving prisoners, with everyone who needs to be brought to here for making this trial actually happen. So when that trial date is set, it is going to be firm. However, you will have the time that you need to prepare.
Okay, so Randolph, here's where we are. We pulled those couple clips from the hearing. It was kind of a long hearing, but they never did set a date. So how common is that in a homicide case, based on your experience such as this, where you've got the change of lawyers and we don't know when it's going?
Yeah, so you've got 2 lawyers on the defense side, and trying to get 2 lawyers to schedule something may be one of the most difficult things to do. On top of that, remember, Charlie is the son, Donna Adelson's son, is being held in either a North Dakota or South Dakota prison. So they're going to have to transfer him from there, which is a logistical nightmare. So that's going to take a lot of planning. It's not unusual for a judge to leave an open-ended calendar, but a lot of times he will say, I want dates by this future date, so that he can then set his calendar as well. There's a lot of moving parts. And I will note, I've heard a lot of judges say, the only place I get to make my own decisions is in this courtroom. All the other decisions get made at home by Mrs. Judge.
Isn't that the truth? Oh my goodness. So Randolph, thinking ahead to when this goes, as you know, it's going to be captivating interest, not only here in the United States, around the world. People have learned about the Adelsons. We know incrementally there's been justice as case by case has been tried, and conviction after conviction has come. And so now kind of we're getting higher up in the family. She's the matriarch, said to be the mastermind. What problems do you think the state of Florida could have in proving its case against her, being that she is removed from the actual act that occurred?
Right. Well, I think the state of Florida actually has a pretty good case here because they have so many people in their pocket that they're going to be able to use. Remember, they've got Charlie, the son, who was convicted. They've also got the other people who they theoretically could offer some sort of deal to. I doubt they will, but at least they can provide them as witnesses. But remember, the biggest piece of evidence the state's got is this one-way ticket to Vietnam. And why was she heading to Vietnam? And there are discussions that she had with family members that she was going there because it was a non-extraditable country. So the state certainly has the old, what you do after the crime oftentimes will sink you. That's one of those big ones, getting caught on that, about to board that flight to Vietnam is going to be tough for her to explain. And I wonder, is she going to get on the stand and try to explain that?
Oh, yeah. I think you're spot on with that analysis, Randolph. And then what's it going to look like when Charlie testifies against her? That's the other big question. This is a mess.
Yep. It is a mess. It's a huge mess. Y'all. It is a massive amount of mess. And it's insane. I'm looking for something specific. I saw it on my phone on the way in here. Let me see if it's in my history. Not in that history. I'm trying to find something. This is on Boone. I don't know what that was. So, I saw, let me pull it up and see if I can find it. A little video of a judge who spoke on Sarah Boone's letter to the judge, and I thought it was brilliant, and I'm trying to find it on my, there it is, history. Oh, is that it? Yes, that's what I want. Let me Google it. Let me get it up and going. Gotta find it. There it is. That's the one I want. This is interesting.
Story for you. We have more on that shocking letter convicted killer Sarah Boone hand wrote to the Honorable Michael Kranick. She blatantly disrespects him, writing in part, quote, "I was hoping to have been graced with your forgiveness, understanding, and consideration in any level or degree. For me, unfortunately, and regardless of when I spoke on my behalf or the number of, your ignorant mind was already made up." She goes on to say, "By your clear error and full-blown unfair bias against me, since your involvement in my crucible case as a whole, I've been unsuccessful in receiving anything from you as a supposed fair and neutral judge, except for your wish that I spend the rest of my life in prison. Please know and always remember, Mr. Kranick, I forgive you." Boone ends the letter by writing, quote, "I am not a murderer, I am a survivor." Now, I said 28 pages, there was a lot in there, and we have a very special guest joining us to unpack it and react to this horrific note. Retired Judge Larry Seidlin on the show. Judge, good morning. Wonderful to have you back on.
Now, y'all, I'm going to warn you. This may upset a few people. I struggled at the end with what he said, but I liked what he said about the judge. Some of y'all asked whether the judge had read it. What will the judge do about it? Well, here's what this judge would do about it. Let's listen.
Opening statements. May I start with your
Good morning,
thoughts?
Julie. I'm retired as a judge, but I'm working hard.
We know you are. We know you are. And I know many
working
of
hard as a lawyer. I represent a lot of, yeah.
Oh, that's great. That's great, Judge. And, we have a little bit of a delay, so I want to tell everybody if it sounds a little bit off. That's why, just the technology. And so many people remember you presiding over the Anna Nicole Simpson case. So you rose to fame, and you've been beloved by so many across the country ever since. Could we talk a little bit about Ms. Sarah Boone in Florida? What are your thoughts on this letter and how she blames and disrespects the judge?
Well, she writes this 28-page letter. You remember Shakespeare's Hamlet with Ophelia giving all these soliloquies. This woman is a full-fledged nut. The judge is not going to read the whole 28 pages because as a judge, you don't want to absorb the mental pain of these people. You don't want to wear yourself out. You don't want to get tired. So you read a few pages and then you turn to the sports section or the news. You don't want to, it's the ramblings of a nut, the musings of a mentally ill person. So there's no way I'm reading those 28 pages unless it's a love letter from my daughter Dax. I'm not reading.
Oh, that's awesome, Judge. And I have another portion.
It really is.
Yeah. I've got another portion here. She says in the letter to His Honor, "I'm no longer in your corrupt court." She calls it a corrupt court, "and free from your malevolent judicial grip." This judge was so professional, so kind. And we know Sarah Boone is difficult. I'm sure you have many difficult people who've been before you, Judge, throughout the years. What do you think, if anything, this judge should do in response to this?
Well, she went through 8 lawyers. And as a litigant, if you're a party in a lawsuit, civil, criminal, it shows instability when you go through more than 1 or 2. And I tell my clients that 1 or 2, if you're going through more than that, it shows you got some mental problems. I still find it difficult that a person can write an ex parte letter to the judge without it first being looked at by the prosecutor. It should be also looked at the prosecutor, and the prosecutor and that party should then set it as a hearing in front of the court. The court can have a hearing or just deny the letter. The smartest thing to do for the judge is to go radio silent, to do nothing. You don't want to give her any credence, any credibility. So you just don't do anything. It's part of her DNA. When you read these letters by her, and when I heard her give a speech in the courtroom, she just pulls words out of the dictionary. She's a one-worder, and she looks for pretty fancy words in the dictionary, and she strings them together. If you put a light bulb in her mouth, it would light up. She's completely off the wall.
Judge, I think she ought to look up the word narcissist in the dictionary. Perhaps she'd find a definition that sounds familiar for herself. Then again, most of them never see themselves as what they are. Judge, this is sage advice that you're giving Judge Michael Kranick in this case, to just do nothing, sit back. You referenced that awful speech Sarah Boone gave. We have a clip. Let's play it now.
I forgive George for beating me senseless, for trying to sleep because I had to go to work or my son's field trip the next day, for ruining my deceased family's heirlooms, traditions, and keepsakes, for drowning me in liquor and wine because I didn't want to drink, causing me to urinate on myself, then butting the end of the bottle in my face, giving me 2 black eyes and a bloody nose, for making me experience what it is to be sodomized.
Dang it!
Threatening to kill my friends and the neighbors when they checked on me to make sure I was alive and in one piece.
Judge Seidlin, what did you think of that speech she gave at sentencing? Have you ever heard anything like that throughout your career, either as a lawyer or judge?
I was a bad boy. As a judge, I wouldn't let them just go like they're in London, in Hyde Park, giving these rambling
This is where I start to get
speeches.
a little.
I would have cut it short. I would have been a little bit more rude. I'm not letting a meatball take over my courtroom. There's no way I'm going to give her that kind of
What am I
audience.
eating for lunch?
And she had an opportunity to leave her boyfriend, and many opportunities. And I know she was also abused by this guy. But you get on a Greyhound bus and you go to a different town. You go somewhere else. There comes a point where you have to have the strength, the courage to make a move, and not stick him in a suitcase where he suffocates. I mean, it's bizarre. And unfortunately, I think the pandemic took a lot of these mentally weak individuals and even sent them further into the abyss. We're surrounded by a lot of mental weak people. So, like the play One Who Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, you can't allow the weak to destroy the strong. So the main character in that play, he says, "Why am I here?" And the response was, "You're here because of people like us." You can't allow the weak to destroy the strong. You got to stay strong. You got to exercise, eat good, and try to be mentally and physically healthy. It's a battle every day, and we all suffer through it, but we got to keep doing it. I mean, I got clients that are off the deep end sometimes. They can always call me. I try to bring them back into the rails.
Sure, sure. No, I know you do. I know you are a tremendous lawyer.
What did you think about that? Wow. Y'all. Yo. Okay, we're going to watch this now. This is will the judge grant a bond for wealthy real estate brothers accused of ST? Let's see what they have to say. So this is a set of, you sitting here laughing, dude? I have a problem with that. One's in the suicide suit. Oop! Unaliving suit. Self-harm suit. Geez, I gotta quit saying things like that. I'm gonna get my own self kicked off of YouTube. Sorry, YouTube. Won't happen again. So one's in the unaliving suit. Wonder why. I think it's kind of cruel they have nothing on. ST, yeah.
Judge, that should be in all cases, just for the record. Warren Alexander has 3 pending F2.
Look how many guards.
F2425504 and F2425507. State has filed felony information on all 3 cases. And
the charge in the arrest warrant is the same charge as the information.
Yes, correct. And then Alon Alexander is charged in F2425503B as the co-defendant with Mr. Warren Alexander and the third co-defendant who has not yet been apprehended.
That's Mr. Fisherman that we addressed earlier today.
Correct.
So they've both been arraigned. As to pretrial detention, my understanding is the parties have an agreement as to bond and also as to release.
Correct, Judge, we do. First of all, there are federal holds in place, so this only covers the state case, and the defendants after this will respond to the federal court to deal with those cases there.
And you verify the corrections that there is a hold with U.S. Marshals, correct?
There is.
Yes, I do see.
There was yesterday. Okay.
You're welcome,
So
Rachel.
as far as Warren Alexander,
I'm not stuck in the trial. I can do it.
Sure. Sure. For Alon Alexander, which is again F2425503B, the defendant will put a personal surety of $2 million that will be secured with their home. A mortgage. The home at 248 Balvay Drive in Bell Harbor, Florida. There will be a corporate surety amount of $25,000. Alon Alexander shall be confined to house arrest level 3 with GPS monitor. There will be a stay away order from the victims. And then the other, it's in a written agreement, Judge, but I'm going to pass that forward.
And his passport, you verified, has already been taken by the federal authorities.
Correct.
Just for the purpose of the court and corrections, the surrender of the passport is not a condition of release.
Judge, I guess the only thing we would have to address is if something happens to that federal case and they have their passports again, they will need to surrender those. If this case is for some reason still pending and that one is not.
But you yourself verified the federal authorities have this passport.
Yes.
So in some, Mr. Nero, it is a personal surety, but it is fully collateralized, right?
That's right. Well, it's collateralized, Your Honor. So it's a $2 million personal.
I got to do a pupper comfort break. Be right back.
Collateralized against his father's home, and the order explains itself, Your Honor, and it's been executed by Alon and his father, Shlomi, who's present in court as well.
I mean, it goes without saying, dad is a blood relative. So if something were to happen, such as he not appearing in court when he's meeting Mr. Alexander, the defendant Alexander, his father would lose real assets, correct?
$2 million, yes.
And I think this satisfies the state regarding the statutory factors of pretrial release, which encompasses risk of flight, as well as the other factors that we're all familiar with, ties to the community, as well as danger to the community,
correct? Judge, that coupled with the house arrest, with the ankle monitor, yes.
So the court has to ratify it, I will ratify it, and I am satisfied that these are reasonable conditions, that you all have fashioned, they are based on the statutory factors, and in addition to the statutory factors that I just laid out, I am satisfied that this will ensure his appearance at future court dates, so I will sign off on that. The easier thing to do is to have copies of this made for corrections. So it is a monetary bond. So instead of the monetary bond that was set by the bond hearing judge, it's $2 million, right?
Yeah, on a loan, it's a personal surety of $2 million secured against the house of his father. And those are the conditions, monetary conditions, Your Honor.
Right, but the corrections is writing what down on their jail card that we've had for the last 4 years here,
Yes.
this paper jail card, what should they be writing down?
So it's house arrest plus $2 million?
No, it's actually house arrest plus.
No, I'm gonna make sure that it's written properly on the jail card. But it is, $2 million personal surety in the event that my client willingly fails to appear, and the undertaking shall be secured by a $400,000 mortgage on the home of his father, Shlomi Alexander. And this home is located at 248 Val Day Drive, Val Harbor. And then apart from that, on a loan, there is a $25,000 corporate surety bond, and that would be issued by Roy Zelmlock of Vail, Miami, who's present in court. And so he would have to put 10%. So essentially, we have to satisfy the personal surety bond. So we're gonna have to, Your Honor is gonna have to sign off on that. We're gonna have to see documentation that Shlomi Alexander is actually the owner of the home. And so this is not gonna be effective today. He can post the corporate surety today of $25,000, but apart from that, we have to come back to you so that you satisfy the other conditions of the bond.
So what the court will write on that house arrest order is house arrest plus $25,000 bond.
Corporate, yes.
They're not gonna write corporate surety in state court. They may write it in federal court, but they're not gonna write it in state court. So it'll be house arrest level 3. With the ankle monitor, the fees are waived, it's $25,000 bond. And we'll write also on the house arrest order, please see pretrial release order on the personal surety guarantees.
Yes, which has been executed by both my client, Alon Alexander, in this case, and his father, Shlomi Alexander. And present before me is Roy Zemlock from Vail, Miami.
Can you put my name on the jail card, please? So the last, I have Roy Zelmlock. Zelmlock, yes, sir. Spell it out.
Zemlock.
Zelmlock.
Yes, sir.
Yes, my baby had to go TT.
So that the personal surety, those documents can be presented to the court and I can sign off on that, correct?
Yes, next week.
Do you have a date next week in mind?
Monday or Tuesday?
This Monday, is that work for you?
Yes.
They were already printing on Monday. Do you want me to print
Please.
a court bond review on Monday?
Yes.
Also at 10 a.m.?
Yes.
Is that work for you? All right. So report rate bond review, Mr. Alon Alexander, 12/16 at 10 a.m. And that's for all of us, including the bondsman, to verify that personal financial guarantees from the blood relative, that they're actually there.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so can I move on now to Mr. Orrin Alexander?
You can, yes.
He's also on page 27.
Yes.
And you all have a document regarding the agreed pretrial release order.
Judge, again, Mr. Orrin Alexander, this covers all 3 of his cases. There will be a personal surety of $3 million in the event he fails to appear. That will be secured by, again, a mortgage on Shlomi.
Hola. Is it Friday already? No.
That's his father's. blood relative.
Oh my God.
There'll be, in case F24-25504, there is a corporate surety in the amount of $25,000, again, issued by Mr. Zemlot. In F24-25507, there is a corporate surety amount in the amount of $25,000, issued by Roy Zemlot. There is again house arrest, level 3 with GPS monitor. There's a stay away order from the victims in all 3 cases. And he shall surrender his passport, which we also have confirmed that the federal government has his passports. However, if for some reason that changes, anytime in the future, they need to be surrendered.
I think I missed if there's a corporate surety going on the third case. I caught two $25,000 on 2 cases. Is there a third corporate surety on it?
There is just a personal judge.
Because that was the one that was held to control detention.
Correct.
So am I issuing a corporate surety bond, or am I allowing him to release that house arrest as an alternate bond of the bond? How does that work? Unless you feel comfortable stipulating to also $25,000 on that third case.
We could do $25,000.
Okay, we'll agree to that.
So it's $25,000 on all 3 cases. The personal surety guarantee by the blood relative, which is the father, is $3 million. Again, if he were to flee, for example, his father would actually lose that amount that is backed by real property. So on all 3 cases, it's $25,000 plus, house arrest plus $25,000 bond. Level 3, late fees. It is also guaranteed by the personal surety, $3 million. And again, this satisfies the state based on the statutory factors of pretrial release, which we all know, and I'll just repeat it again for the record, the risk of flight, dangers to community, and also to ensure his presence in future court dates, right?
Yes, Judge.
So, as I said with the other co-defendants, I reviewed this as well as statutory factors. I will ratify it. I do believe these are reasonable conditions. In addition to the safety of the community, as well as ties to the community, it will ensure his presence at future court dates. So I'll sign off on it.
Investigation for 25507, 25504 has house arrest plus the 25.
Correct. And the stay away orders remain intact. We've already said that. The passport has been surrendered, and federal authorities have it. And he's in the same condition as the co-defendants. This doesn't get him released either, because there's a U.S. marshal.
That's correct.
And what do you anticipate happening on the federal side?
Well, I anticipate them being brought over to district court in Miami. Both of them are being brought over to district court in Miami, and then having a pretrial detention hearing, just like we're having today.
And you also want a 12/16 date?
I do.
So 12/16 at 10 a.m. report a bond review?
Yes.
And that's for the purpose of making sure that the bondsman has verified the surety documents. We'll review them together, and if they're all in order, then I'll ratify it. Then I will also make that condition of release having been satisfied.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there anything else we have to address?
Your Honor, just to go about getting a copy of today's proceeding, and obviously we don't support reporters anymore, but how does that work, and how quickly can it get done?
Tiana Chin is a court reporter. I don't know if she has a
Oh,
business card on
I
her.
didn't see
She's
it.
here. She's with laws reporting.
Uh-huh.
I think she does have a business card. So what she'll do is, we'll just order all case numbers.
Yes.
And you can get the transcripts. You can probably get the next to that.
And copies of the proposed order.
So let me ask one question. He's an officer of the court. Can he take these upstairs and get certified copies? Or can I have my judicial assistant file them with the court right now? Through the e-file portal?
Yes.
And then because you're on the listserv, you'll automatically get me your
Could I have original copies? I want to be able to take them to district court today for the brother who has a pretrial detention hearing.
You want to certify that,
I
right?
do. So I can run them up.
Can you want to do that? Usually we don't certify.
Right, Judge, we don't.
Okay, can I just run them upstairs and I'll be back in 5 minutes?
We've done that before, where we allow.
Hey, Papa.
He can do it.
Are you home?
So I'll be right back. with
Okay,
these,
how was your trip?
I don't have anything else unless the court has anything.
I got a very disturbing phone call this morning, or this when I was headed back to my doctor's appointment, that one of the trees in the backyard fell down and is hanging over the fence next door to my neighbors and hit their power cord.
Wow, I didn't even get it.
Oh, I have several trees in the backyard and they're all pretty bad, but
He wants to leave.
Okay, guys, I'm back. We we had a big tree fall down, and it fell into part our yard, part our neighbor's yard, and so we're in the throes of dealing with that. But anyway, yeah, we're kind of court hopping for the moment. It is what it is. But I want to share this. This is something I ran across. I didn't actually watch it, but I saw the title. So I thought this might be interesting to watch. So share this one. Okay, there we go. So apparently, I may have to move it up here. This is a very interesting series of hearings in the morning of Judge Fletcher deals with a zealous defense attorney who may have crossed the line with representing his client. A long one, but worth the watch. All right, let's see.
And that they release him within 48 hours. I got to go upstairs and talk to a couple people to see how to go forward on this thing. Because I don't know. It's a new one to me, you know?
I'm not going to go behind the court's back, but.
No, Mr. Feldman, let me tell you something that, you know.
You don't
need
ever
to be
say that.
careful what you do. There is a fine line between zealously advocating for your client and doing something that either breaks the law, is unethical, that could get you in potential trouble. You need to be very careful.
Morning, Judge.
Hi.
I just want one thing I'll say. I have my client here on video.
What?
He can identify himself if necessary.
What?
I'll just put my camera on. So.
This is a first for me.
It's a first for the ICE supervisor I just spoke to as well.
Wow.
This is,
I mean, wow.
I don't.
Mr. Feldman, that's some good work, man.
I'm
Great
an
job.
immigration attorney, Judge. So I mean, and I'm a salaried employee.
Yeah.
Really great job.
Well, I just mean if I wasn't a salaried employee, maybe it wouldn't be worth my time.
But representation is representation, doesn't matter, you know, really, at the end of the day, everyone is.
I don't believe that. I mean, I spoke to the ICE supervisor and even he said, I.
Well, hold on. We need to go on the record. Sorry, Miss Summer, give me a second. Are you ready, Ramona? Okay.
Order in the court, going on the record.
So, Mr. Feldman, what's the last name again?
Carl.
We're on the
All right.
record.
Have a seat, please.
Thank you. What's his last name again?
This is Cesar Moises Capriel Perez. I think he's listed as Moises Perez on the.
Moises Capriel Perez, Judge.
Yeah.
I can have a cause number.
Yeah, okay, let me have that,
Okay, it's
please.
529290.
Okay, all right, sorry, let's go on the record. All right. We are on the record. It is cause number 252-9290. Today is December 10th, 2024. It's approximately 9:44 in the morning. Parties, I'd like you to announce yourselves for purposes of the record, please. Beginning with the state.
ADA Rojette Saba and ADA Kelsey Siegler here for the state.
And this is Noah Feldman on behalf of the defendant Cesar Moises Perez.
Okay. You requested this hearing, so I'm going to let you start.
Okay, Judge. Well, before I start, I have 10 exhibits. I sent it to the chief last night, and I believe she forwarded it to Ms. Saba. I moved to admit those exhibits, tender them to the state for any objection.
And Your Honor, we would need significant time to look over these because we haven't been able to do so since they were.
Yeah, I have 10 exhibits. It's quite a bit.
Judge,
I get.
If I may. The first exhibit is the ICE detainer. It was in Harris County possession. The second exhibit is the magistrate order in which the state requested an $1,000 bond, which my client posted. The third exhibit is basically an ICE form you can get off the internet. It's a stay of removal form. that ICE allows people with final orders of removal to apply for stays of removal that allow them to stay in the country for a limited time and limited purpose. So what I just offer this to show that. I mean,
Is this his, or is this just a generic?
Generic.
Okay.
Exhibit 4 is going to be just proof that he's in ICE custody. It's a print off the ICE.
That's 4.
Exhibit 4.
Okay.
Exhibit 5 is the bond condition violation report. Exhibit 6 is from the DA portal, just showing the release time from the jail to prove that he was released to ICE. Exhibit 7 is the cash bond that defendant's wife posted. Exhibit 8, to be honest, is unnecessary.
Okay.
Could withdraw Exhibit 8. Exhibit 9 is a sample order of supervision you can get off the internet. It's just standard ICE form. And Exhibit 10 are this court's procedures that are available on its website about failure to appear and non-appearance. Those are the 10 exhibits.
So for purposes of the defendant, so record, I want to make it clear that Mr. Feldman has his computer, and it looks like I can see the defendant there, and it looks like he can look at us as well, but there's no translator, so does he understand what's going on?
That is correct, Judge. I do not believe he understands what is going on.
So now state, how do you respond to the exhibits?
And you don't have an
I
interpreter.
did not get these exhibits until my chief forwarded them to me while I was in docket today, earlier this morning. I'm gonna need time to review these. I'm not an immigration attorney, so I'm unfamiliar with these documents. I would ask for at least a day just to, or, I mean, if you don't wanna roll it to tomorrow, just like an hour or so I can read through it.
Sure, of course.
And that's- And we did speak, or I spoke to the ICE supervisor, judge, the one handling his ICE case. His name is Jeff Hudson. I relayed defense's requests for an order of supervision, and the officer said, he declined the request. He said that there would be no way that they would release defendant given that he is a flight risk and his assault charge makes him a community risk as well. He also advised that the defendant has been deported before. He advised that the only way to get the defendant over to this court is if you issue a bench warrant, and then they would review that warrant and decide whether or not they would transport him over here, which is what I advised defense before. He also said that we can try to work out the possibility of the defendant giving a virtual plea, but in terms of them releasing him.
But we need a thumbprint. I need a thumbprint. I need his signature.
Yes, Judge.
There's no translator there for him now.
Yes, Judge. He also did say that the officer did also tell me respectfully that we don't really have jurisdiction to litigate this immigration issue.
Sure. What you want is you do not want me to revoke his bond.
That is correct, Judge.
You want me essentially to hold this case open. He's going to get deported, right?
That is my understanding.
Essentially, what you want me to do is you want me to hold this case open indefinitely.
Judge, if I may.
Okay.
Look, to me, for this court to revoke its bond based on these circumstances, I'd like to constitutionalize the objection. I think it would be, a violation of equal protection, procedural due process. I think it would be a violation of Section 11 of the Texas Constitution, which say that all prisoners shall be bailable. Section 13, which say that excessive bail shall not be required. Section 19, which says that no citizen of this state, I don't think they mean US citizen, shall be deprived of liberty, which this would be doing by revoking his bond, without due course of the law of the land. Now, the Texas Code of Criminal Procedure is very clear. When a defendant has once given bail for his appearance, he shall not be required to give another bond. That's 17.09 paren 2. This defendant, all he has done is posted the bond that the state requested, which is in Exhibit 2, which back after the ICE hold, the state requests a $1,000 bond for the defendant. Defendant posted the bond and without any volition on his own gets taken into ICE custody I think you would agree with me, Judge. The state has the burden to prove a bond violation. There is a bond violation report. I think we should all agree there's been no bond violation because he had no ability to get an ignition in our lot. He had no ability to report to pretrial. So the only exception to this one bond are the following. If the bond's defective, there's no defective in the bond. If the bond is excessive, I don't see, nobody's arguing the $1,000 bond was excessive. If the bond is insufficient in amount, which is very broad, but I want to make clear that there is no amount of bond, as Ms. Saba just said, that can guarantee that my client can attend court. There's no amount. We could set them at $1 million bond. So I don't think insufficient in amount is correct. The only other catch-all is good and sufficient cause. Now, I did some case law research on good and sufficient cause, and these are new or changed circumstances from which the court can conclude that some cause exists for revoking a bond and setting a different bond. Now, as I said, the only bond that this court could set that would guarantee my client comes to court would be a bond that is impossible for him to post, right? Because any postable bond, he would have no control in getting to court. Now, ICE, if I may, Judge, I understand what Ms. Saba relayed that the ICE officer said, but I can tell you that 8 CFR section 241.5 allows ICE to release anyone on an order of supervision if they're subject to a final order of removal. If you look at Exhibit 1, the ICE detainer, it says that if you need this subject to remain in the United States for law enforcement purposes, you can call this number at 936-520-588. Oh, sorry, that's the wrong number. 802-872-6020. And ICE can consider whether the law enforcement purposes are serious enough to keep the person in the country. Now, I think it would be punitive to take away $1,000 from somebody who posted a bond that this court affirmed that the state requested and say, I'm taking away your $1,000 because of actions completely out of your control, actions that are being taken by a third party.
So if I bench warrant him back here, then nothing will happen to that then, right?
A bench warrant is a revocation of bond. Because if you bench warrant him, basically you're asking the sheriff to go get him, or you're asking ICE to bring him. ICE has already told Ms. Saba, we're not bringing him. The sheriff, if they go recover him.
No, they haven't said they said they were going to think about it, that they were going to look at it. They didn't say that they weren't going to.
Well, then let me clarify, Judge. If you want to bench warrant and be clear in that bench warrant that this is not a revocation of bond, I have no objection to that bench warrant. It's my opinion.
You had an objection last time to the bench warrant.
I have thought about it some more, Judge. If you bench warrant him, but there's no revocation of bond, I have no objection.
Well, then we're all happy.
But
are you happy with that?
Yes, Judge, I'm
Great.
fully deferring to you.
Let's do it.
then let me say one more thing, Judge. I would request that on that bench warrant, it be clear this is not a revocation of bond. And let me tell you what.
Go ahead.
Because if you issue a bench warrant and there's no revocation of bond, the sheriff's office is not going to recover the body, because upon recovery of the body, they're going to have to release the body. And ICE could always, while he's in ICE custody, bring him, respect the court's bench warrant and bring him to the courthouse. I mean, I think he'd be in civil detention the whole time. I don't think they can put him back there.
Sure they can.
They
can.
I don't think they can.
Every time we bench warrant them, they go right back over there.
Because they're in county custody by that point. But what I'm saying is ICE can keep him in their custody, which is civil administrative detention, and bring him to court if they so choose. Now, They can try. They can try to do that, but I would just please ask this court, because I've seen it on numerous
I won't
occasions.
revoke it now, but let me ask you this.
Yes,
I'm supposed to be fair.
Yes, Judge.
I can't show favoritism, right?
Of course, Judge.
If I were to essentially, if he gets deported and I never revoke his bond, where have you ever heard that happening before? Doesn't that show favoritism toward you?
How would that show favoritism?
Because I'm doing something and I'm allowing your client to remain on bond for eternity when I've never done that with anyone else. Essentially, he's on bond for DWI. He doesn't have to comply with any conditions, no matter where he is, whether he's in Abu Dhabi, whether he's in Africa, whether he's in Mexico, whether he's in Guadalajara. You know, he's supposed to not consume alcohol. He's supposed to be monitored. He's supposed to have an interlock. And thereby, I'm saying, okay, here, look, you don't have to do any of these conditions. Everybody else does, but not you, Mr. Moises Perez.
disagree,
You
Judge.
are so.
I disagree, Judge, and here's why. The state of Texas works very closely with the Department of Homeland Security. The state of Texas, if they want to continue him on bond, which is their choice, because they want to continue the prosecution, they don't want to dismiss and refile, they can always put in a request that he be paroled back into the country for the prosecution, subject to the bond conditions. If you don't think that my client wants to remain in the country and follow your conditions, you are incorrect. We requested release from ICE. We requested that he be able to follow the court's conditions.
My
and abide
comfort
by
break now,
every
sorry.
single thing you put in that order.
You're apples and oranges. No, it's the point is that he's allowed to remain free on a DWI. Everyone else in our court has to follow a certain set of conditions, yet he's not going to have to follow those.
He should have to follow them.
And Judge,
There's
just
no supervision.
If there's proof
How
of
can I
him,
drug test him?
Judge,
How can I,
then-
how
then-
does he do
then
the
what's
interlock?
The solution. The solution is either we're.
No. I'm going to bench warrant him. But what I'm trying to get you to understand is that it's not fair. I have to be fair to the state and I have to be fair to you. And I can't show favoritism. And I think that if I were to let him pass indefinitely without revoking the bond, if I were to, well, we're going to bench warrant now this is theory, right? As a practical matter, I'm going to bench warrant him here for you. But in theory, right, wouldn't it show favoritism? I think it does. Because I'm allowing you and your client to do something that I don't allow anyone else to do.
But wouldn't it be the opposite if you were to take $1,000 from him that he lawfully posted at the request of the state and this court at no fault of his own? I also think that's unprecedented.
I get it, but he's in this country. You know, the right way to do things is you ask for permission, you come here.
Judge, that's completely irrelevant.
Well, no, it's not. You must follow the law, period.
But
And when you don't, there are consequences.
Judge, he was given the $1,000 bond at the state's request
Again,
after we knew he had a final order.
I just wanted you to see it from my perspective. That's it, right? I'm going to bench warrant him for you. I'm not going to revoke the bond. We'll try to get him here for you. If for some reason at that point they don't, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But we'll try to bench warrant him. Did you want to add anything?
Yes, Judge. The officer Hudson did advise me that if you issue a bench warrant, if you want to send me a copy of that, I can email it to him directly and as well as through whatever routes the court does it as well. But I can email it to him directly this morning if you do that.
That's incredibly expeditious because I tell you what, that it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And it's literally when we issue a bench warrant, it takes a while to get to the appropriate person. It takes forever for them to think. It takes 3 months to bench warrant. So this is really expeditious.
I provided all the information, contact information for the ICE officers.
Judge,
Great.
actually,
So that helps, Mr. Feldman, you know?
Judge, just to clarify, the officer that defense tried getting me in touch with was not in charge of this case. Upon sending a message to that officer, he connected me to the supervising officer for this case.
Hey, Zach, we're watching a judge tear into lawyers.
The idea
is to be CC'd on all communications.
Sure, of course.
Yes,
Everything's transparent here. No one hides anything. And I mean, I don't do the bench warrant. Usually Victoria does it, so I don't know the protocol to it. But
there's
so whenever I guess when you send it via email, just if you don't mind CCing him.
Yes, sir. We always CC. Yes,
So,
sir.
Of course,
yeah.
Judge.
You're happy with that?
Yes, Judge, as long as there's no
You're happy
revocation.
too?
Yes, Judge.
Wonderful.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
Judge.
Makes it for such a great,
Thank you. I appreciate it, Judge.
off the record.
Thank you, Judge.
Good job. Way to be tenacious.
My only concern is that, my biggest issue was that there be no bond revocation. I'm thinking about this logically. If you bench warrant him without a bond revocation, if the sheriff recovers the body, they should have to release the body because he's on bond.
No. He has an ICE detainer. He cannot leave custody. He will continually be in custody from one time until he gets here. At no point are they ever going just to release him in the free world.
I understand, Judge, but what the sheriff is going to say is they're going to say we need a capias, and the capias can only issue if there's a bond revocation.
What leads you to that conclusion?
Because I've seen it in other cases. Or
I will tell
sheriff.
you that every time I have bench warranted someone here, we either get them or we don't. I have never had someone released when they have an ICE detainer.
I don't think he'll be released, but I guess my point is, let's say you bench warrant him. He's posted bond already, right? So he gets put in the county jail. He's on bond.
He still has the ICE detainer.
Right, I understand. But when you post bond with an ICE detainer, you can be held for up to 48 hours. So basically, you would be authorizing the sheriff's office to take custody of him for 48 hours maximum, right? Because he already has a bond.
No.
Explain that to
Get his
me.
body, and he will stay with us here until we do something with the case.
But his bond isn't revoked.
Correct. I can do one of two things. I can either bench warrant or I can revoke the bond. It is duplicitous to do both. So typically we do one or we do the other. I'm just going to bench warrant him back here. They're going to send the bench warrant to the person at immigration. Hopefully that will expedite the process, but I don't know how long it'll be. But if they bring Mr. Perez back, we should get him back here and we will talk with him the next business day.
Are you able, so the,
I think you're overthinking this, Mr. Feldman.
Judge, I'm looking at the code, right? 1503 gives you the authority to bench warrant, right?
What do you want me to do?
I don't want the bond revoked.
I'm not revoking the bond. I reset the case so as to not revoke the bond. All I did was issue a bench warrant. One, there are two vehicles to get Mr. Perez back here to us. One is a bench warrant and one is a revocation of bond. Both achieve the same purpose, which is getting the body back here. You asked me to do the one, so that's what we're doing, as a courtesy to you. I'm not revoking the bond. It will remain intact. We will get his body and he'll just be here and
so
waiting for us to do whatever we're going to do.
Will he be held at no bond?
No, he'll just be here, held at the $1,000 bond, saying bond made, but the ICE detainer keeps him here.
But the ICE detainer is only valid for 48 hours.
Not that I've seen. We have people here that sit here months on an ICE detainer.
Your Honor, the detainer itself says so. They sit there months on the ICE detainer because they haven't posted bond.
I don't know what to tell you, Mr. Feldman. I don't know what to tell you. But as soon as we get them, we'll try to do what we can. Hopefully we don't get them on a Saturday. I don't know.
Can you put something in the bench warrant that specifically says bond is not revoked?
I don't know. I mean, I'd have to reach out to my staff lawyer to figure out what kind of implication that would be. I don't know. But I'm telling you, I'm not revoking the bond. I don't know what else I can tell you to give you assurance that I'm not revoking,
Okay, so when he comes back into custody, it's going to say bond
We'll
made.
try to, yeah, it's still going to say bond active. It'll still say everything that it says now. We've done it many times, never had an issue. They either give us the body or they don't. It just depends on what ICE does, because sometimes they follow it, sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just go ahead and deport. I've seen it both ways.
And Judge, when I spoke to his officer this morning, the one handling the ICE case, he told me whenever they receive bench warrants, they don't always,
Comply.
they don't always comply. With this, I can speak to him and try to get him here, but at the end of the day,
First,
they're
no.
gonna do
But
what they
first, talk to your superiors to see, is that going above and beyond? Because I don't want you to do anything that's going to get you in trouble.
That's true.
Remember? So
And that's what I was
always
trying to tell this-
consider, before you because that's a lot.
Yeah.
I don't want you to do anything that's going to get you in trouble, because you have certain boundaries and certain things that you got to do as well, like I and like him. So we'll give you a copy of it.
Okay.
Reach out to your people and see, hey, is this okay? If so, then yeah, send it, right?
Okay.
And then attach Mr. Feldman so that we're all on the same page. And hopefully that, if you can, that'll expedite everything. Regardless, we're going to send the bench warrant regardless. But with you guys and with the intervention, if you can, hopefully that'll expedite everything, and hopefully they will comply with it. Because and I'll tell you, Mr. Feldman, I have no idea why they comply when they do and why they don't comply when they do. I don't know. I don't. No one has ever told us either way why they do or they don't. I just don't know. We'll do everything we can to try to get them back. If we can, wonderful. If not, we'll cross that bridge and we'll do what we can when we get there.
And Judge, will in terms of the issuance of the bench warrant and the communications with the sheriff, will you also CC defense counsel on that?
When you send the bench warrant, who do you send it to?
So I generate it and give it to the clerk. The clerk sends it into different drop boxes and then
So you don't CC any, you don't like email it. No,
So guys, this is what's going on. I'm sorry. I have no heat and I had a tree limb fall. It's been a day. So I'm going to let this run. I'll be right back.
there's a certain process that they have when they send the bench warrant. They don't email it. There's a Dropbox that they do. So there's really no way to attach you to that. If they email it to the person, then the DAs can attach you. But with the actual filing of it, there's no way to attach you. It goes to like a Dropbox of some sort.
If I can just say one last thing, Judge, and I know I'm being annoying and I'll leave.
Mr. Feldman, we have thick skin. You're not annoying. You're doing your job, and I'm not going to begrudge you for doing it.
Okay. What I would guess is that in cases where you bench warrant and the person's sitting in jail waiting for the hearing, my guess is that the sheriff has revoked bond.
Sheriff cannot revoke a bond, Mr. Feldman.
I agree with you, Judge. I agree.
They can't.
But I'm just saying that when you're in jail and you post bond and you have an ICE detainer, the county can hold for 48 hours. And you're telling me that you see it
when we bench warrant them back, it's different. When we bench warrant them back, we will get them and they'll stay here. And I'm telling you that from the experience that we've had.
Right, I understand. But I'm just saying, if he gets bench warranted back and he has a valid bond, I'm going to go to the sheriff's office and I'm going to tell them that y'all have 48 hours to keep him on the detainer because he can't be held at no bond.
Then I'm going to revoke his bond, Mr. Feldman. I mean, if you're telling the sheriff's office to go release him, then I'm going to revoke his bond because that's what it sounds like you're trying to do.
It's not, Judge. It's not. What I want is no bond revocation.
Hey, don't overthink it.
We had a good day.
Perhaps
It
maybe
was a good
putting fuel on a fire. I don't know. I don't know what you want, but we're going to follow a process that we've always done. I'm not going to deviate from it, right? We do things a certain way. That's it. I'm not going to do anything special for your guy that I wouldn't do to anyone else in the entire world. I'm going to follow the law, and I'm going to continue the way that I see that it should be done. And the way is we either revoke or we issue the bench warrant. We're going to try to get the body back. If for some reason someone releases him or whatnot, we'll deal with that, how that happens. But, much more than that, I can't tell you. I don't know they're either going to give him to us or they're not going to give him to us. And that's it.
Wow.
Yes, Judge.
I mean, if you're telling me that you're going to go to the sheriff's office and demand that they release him within 48 hours, I got to go upstairs and talk to a couple people to see how to go forward on this thing. Because I don't know. It's a new one to me,
And Judge, at that point, the state would ask that we revoke the bond, if that's what defense is planning to do. I mean, we agree with you.
Then let's
Yeah.
just see what happens, Judge.
Judge, we're gonna need.
But I have a feeling that you're now going to the sheriff's office to demand his release within 48 hours of recovery.
And Judge, this is putting us in a compromising position as well, because if this is what defense is planning to do, we need to let ICE know. We may need to do that. I need to check with my superiors.
Oh, he's putting
I don't
everybody in
have
a
a
bad
problem with-
place.
Letting ICE know.
I don't know what to do here, Judge.
There's young attorneys.
I thought we were doing revoking the bond as a favor to defense, because this isn't customary when we issue a bench warrant. But if defense is going to, in a way, abuse that to get him released, then the state is taking issues with that.
I do too.
Judge, I wouldn't be
I
abusing
mean,
it.
if that's what you're going to do, I'm going to end up revoking the bond, I guess, because I think that you're trying to go behind our backs. It's, I really.
Well, Judge, why don't we do this? Why don't we do this? Why don't we do the bench warrant as needed? And if they've recovered the body, then we'll have another hearing, obviously, to figure out what we're going to do. I'm not going to go behind the court's back, but
Mr. Feldman, let me tell you something that, you need to be careful what you do. There is a fine line between zealously advocating for your client and doing something that either breaks the law, is unethical, that
Yeah.
could get you in potential trouble. You need to be very careful. You really do. There's a fine line. I've
I
seen a lot
understand,
of
Judge.
lawyers get in trouble, and I'm just counseling you as, I guess as a friend, but I guess I get that you're zealous, but just be careful,
yes, Judge, I promise you, I'm going to follow the code and I'm going to follow the rules of ethics.
I guess, Judge, are you still planning at this point to issue a bench warrant without revoking
But I'm
the
going to
bond?
bend it as far as I can without
Okay.
snapping.
And then,
We'll see what happens. We'll see. We'll let it play out. I mean, we're all adults. We'll see how it pans out. You do what you think is right. And we'll just go from there.
okay, Judge, thank you, Judge.
Okay.
Thank you, Judge.
Wow. That was I have not watched this judge courtroom. I have not done that. So that would be interesting. Huh. Well, defense attorneys are doing their job. You can't get mad at them for that. They're doing their job. They're doing the job. But he's young and zealous. And I think that judge had that nailed. He's young and zealous. He's jealous. Oh, you did, Zach. I see there's some communication. Okay. Sounds like a place. a plan?
All right, I'm gonna ask you the same question that I asked everybody else. Has an acknowledgement of discovery been done, because I don't have it in the court's file?
I have signed a few of them at this point,
All right, so has there been any new discovery?
not to my knowledge.
All right, so you can make sure that the acknowledgement of discovery, the state actually has it and the court has it, because it's not in the court's file. And Odyssey is doing things on its own. So I'm gonna have y'all come back tomorrow. You're not number one on the docket.
Okay.
There are a couple of cases that are ahead of you, so those cases may end up going before yours. We'll just see where we are, okay?
That's correct. Respectfully, Your Honor, Mr. Rios always appears, always waits all day. This is impacting his employment. We would ask that if we're not likely to be called tomorrow, that we be released. Additionally, I have experts for this trial that we have attempted to bring in, but we never know, and because the case is older now, when we should bring those experts in. So I'm gonna have to approach the court and request additional funds for those experts if we're reset. So I would ask the court either to give us some preference tomorrow for trial, or if we can't do that, to release Mr. Rios so that he can go to work.
All right, be here exactly at 9:30, okay?
Okay, yes.
All right, I'm supposed to be here exactly at 9:30.
You understand? Now, Your Honor, respectfully, every time we come to court, we lose an entire day of work ourselves too. This is not typical of most of the courts in this county.
Oh, yeah, it is very typical.
It's not.
Yes, it is.
You can say that, Judge, but I practice in
And
the
say that,
courts.
and it very is typical, because every attorney that's here has a case that's set for jury trial. And this is what ends up happening. What ends up happening is I will allow people to go to civil cases to be out of county, and then their client is sitting here waiting for them. And for some reason, that's the court's fault. That's not the court's fault when attorneys are not showing up at 9 or whatever, and then they stroll in at 9:30 or 9:45. So what I'm telling you all, 9:30, see y'all at 9:30. Thank you. Coordinator will give you a reset form.
Understood. Your
All
Honor,
right,
I'm
thank
trying to
you.
make a record. I don't see the court reporter typing.
What?
Okay, so we only take a record in this court when the judge tells you to? The case was called.
No, the case wasn't called. When I call the case, I call it by the style of the case.
Okay.
All right? All right, so I'll see y'all at 9:30.
Judge, I have to ask you, is this a tactic on the court's part to attempt to wear out the defendant so they can't access their right to trial?
Oh.
Are you
I
kidding me?
find
Did
that-
he just say that?
Very inappropriate to say when there is no proof and people are just throwing things out. Now, what I can tell you, and I'm sure your client is aware, sometimes when we end up coming to court, we come to court because there are discovery issues. Sometimes when you're in court, you are in court because your attorney is late. And when I say late, I mean that when a case is scheduled in this court and it's scheduled for 9 a.m. and attorneys go to different courts because they want to go to different courts first, it is not the court's fault that you're sitting here for 12 o'clock or 1:30 or coming back over break. Number one, I have a lunch break. And there was a point in time where I would not take a lunch break. And the reason why I wouldn't take a lunch break is because I said, you know what?
Make a record?
I've been a defense attorney. And when I was a defense attorney, what I would always do, I'm like, I have to be in like 5 courts. It would be nice if they could stagger their docket. And so sometimes I would be here.
Tell 'em.
We wouldn't have a lunch break and I would be here till 3 o'clock. And then you know what I discovered? When I would say that I'm going to be here till 3 o'clock, I'm working through lunch. Other attorneys, you know what they would end up doing? Then they wouldn't show up in the morning. They would just show up at 1:30 or whatever, because they're like, oh, the judge is going to stay there. So I stopped doing that because I need a lunch break. And that's what happens.
So then my other question, I guess, is if you're not doing this to cause the hardship, it obviously causes on all the attorneys and the defendants. Are you doing this for the YouTube? Because we don't have a record, right? Except for the YouTube.
Yes, here's the thing. You're to be back tomorrow at 9:30. You
Yes.
understand?
Yes.
All right, thank you so much. And once you sign the reset form, you'll be here tomorrow. If somebody goes before you, somebody goes before you. Your counsel is well aware, or should be well aware, if he's been practicing in Bear County,
For almost
that
20
there
years.
are a lot of cases that are on the docket for jury trial. So for example, I had approximately 40 cases down for jury trial today. And what ends up happening, sometimes people who are in custody take precedent because their cases are older
I'm
than
asking
yours.
for a record, by the way.
You understand? Because they're older than yours. So that's what happens. So then what
When
ends
things are
up
being paid,
happening.
there should be a record, right?
Excuse me, stop interrupting me.
Well, we're not on the record.
Stop interrupting me.
Oh, look at the sheriff
Right,
is
we're
getting
not
closer.
Stop
Go.
interrupting me.
Sir, here's your reset form at 9:30.
So what ends up happening, sir, is that people who are in custody, sometimes their cases take precedent. And the reason why it takes precedent is because their cases are older and because the jail is overcrowded. Now, as you may or may not be aware, I call the docket all the time at 9 a.m. And sometimes when I call the docket at 9 a.m., defense attorneys are not here. Your attorney knows when he has not been here at 9 a.m. and then you have to wait. And you
Judge,
need
you're
to
aware
be
that every
here.
court starts at 9.
And you need to
I
be
have other
here.
cases.
And you need to be here at 9. So when your attorney is somewhere at another court, you know what ends up happening? Your attorney has made the choice to have you sit here and go to another court before
Well,
coming
that's not
here.
exactly true,
You
because all of
understand?
those courts got
All right,
business
good luck to
accomplished.
you.
All
Thank
of us
you.
got
Thank you,
recalled
sir.
today.
Thank you,
Right,
sir.
Judge? So, I mean, what did we accomplish?
Have a nice
today?
afternoon, sir.
I mean, that's the reason I don't come to your court at 9, because I know in another court,
Sir,
some things
here's your
can actually
answer.
occur.
Sir.
And their courts of exactly the same
Sir.
jurisdiction.
This way,
Oh.
sir.
Oh.
That's what they're saying.
All right, thank you.
Bro. That guy's like, oh, snap. Oh, wow.
All right, Mr. Guzman. Yes. All right, so before the interpreter came, and correct me if I'm wrong, your attorneys came forward to let me know that they just received a new indictment. Is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, and so that indictment, excuse me. Step away.
I was doing what the court ordered me to do and checking on the discovery.
Oh.
All right, so what ended up happening is your attorneys. All right.
She's so polite.
Things have really changed the way people treat people, which I find very odd. All right, so anyway.
Oh, I'm going to save that and I'm saving this one. Oh, wow, Zach. Thank you. Oh, wow. I'm a little in shock at the moment. Yeah. Hey, Zach, I have a question for you. I hope you're listening. Do you know anybody who could cut a tree limb that's fallen? I had a big chunk of a tree fall, half on my yard, half in my neighbor's over the fence. We need some help, Zach. So if you know anything, let me know. Sorry. So I need somebody who is real reasonable, or if they want to keep the wood, they can come trim it for really good firewood. So if you know anything, DM me. Yeah, really, it's been a rough week. Tuesday, I need to let y'all know I will not be live. It's my sister's memorial. And then Monday, I might or may not be on. If I do, it's not going to be full time. So Monday, Tuesday are going to be iffy next week. Monday's iffy. Tuesday's not. Wednesday on, we're good. Yeah, and they charge a fortune, and I don't have it. But anyway, but thank you. Anybody have any more of those kind of videos? Great. What I'd like to do is I'm going to go over here now, and the trial against a Utah woman accused of poisoning husband is set. I want to watch what happens with that. And why do I not have sound? Maybe they don't have sound. Do y'all have sound?
All right, we're here for a pre-trial conference.
There it is.
I have a list of questions and issues I wanted to at least discuss briefly, if not fully. Were there a list of issues that you all wanted to discuss today?
There it is. So we have sound.
And we don't even have to decide today, we just.
Why is it so soft?
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. 1 day of evidence to hear the suppression issues.
We think that would be sufficient.
Mr. Bloodworth, does that sound about right?
Yes, Your Honor, without having seen the prima facie file.
Sure. I could just write these dates down for me, and then we can talk. I could give you January 13, January 23, January 30. For that, there was going to be a significant number of motions eliminated.
Highly significant number of motions.
Right. Let's talk about that for a second. A lot of experts in this case. Any 702 motions come?
There may be those two. We don't know yet.
Do we need to set aside a day or two to hear those motions eliminated well in advance of the trial?
I believe that would probably be wise. We are trying to eliminate as many authenticity issues as we can. We're not gonna be unreasonable about that. We'll stipulate to authenticity as far as we possibly can go, which will be a lot. So I think our motions to eliminate will not be related to authenticity with maybe 1 or 2 exceptions. Most of them will just be related to prejudice, and 4-1, 4-3 type arguments.
Can you guys hear them? Because it's in and out with me.
Or 4-4B.
I don't know why.
I don't know that we would need more than a day, but it depends if we have to have a Daubert hearing. If we have to have a
Anybody
Daubert
want to respond?
but we
Please.
don't know that yet. So we haven't actually exchanged our experts yet.
How close to trial do you want to set those two?
The motion to eliminate, I'd like to.
All right, we'll find something else because this is just.
You know, as you prepare for trial, you find more and more, right? The Daubert hearing, it does.
You did the autopsy on November the 24th.
Let me see if this is going to work. Okay, this is the murder trial that we were looking at earlier.
2017.
All right,
and
better
started
sound.
Working at Charleston, I think 2020.
Okay, we're going to watch this because there's really nothing else unless y'all send me some stuff.
Please tell the jury about your education, background, and training.
I got my Bachelor of Science degree in biochemistry, magna cum laude, and Phi Beta Kappa from.
Okay, now that I know the sound is good and it's not my hearing aid. It's just some of the streams from certain channels are intermittent, and I don't know why. But this trial here is, once again, we were watching it. We're on the 4th day. Celeste Owens, who's accused of malice unaliving of the 8-year-old girl. We already know. Okay, just we're gonna watch some of that, and then go from there. Thank y'all for joining me today. It's kind of hopping around
I
today.
did my medical school training in Charleston, South Carolina, my hometown. I also did my residency training in anatomic pathology and clinical pathology. That was also at the Medical University of South Carolina. Did my fellowship in forensic pathology again at the Medical University of South Carolina. That did include a month in the Dade County, Florida, the Miami Medical Examiner Department. In addition, during the course of that training, I did an internship at the FBI Behavioral Sciences Unit in Quantico, Virginia. Since graduating the residency and fellowship, I've done continuing medical education on an annual basis ever since.
Is performing autopsies part of one or more of your jobs?
Yes.
How many autopsies would you estimate you've performed in your career?
Personally, I've probably done something like 8,000. I've assisted in another couple of thousand. In my former job as the chief medical examiner for the state of Alabama, we did something like 1,500, 2,000 postmortem cases a year. All told, I think it's safe to say that I've been part of 16, 17, 18,000 postmortem cases.
Have you ever testified at trial before?
Many times.
Have you ever been qualified as an expert in forensic pathology at trial?
Many times.
Can you estimate about how many times you've testified as an expert in forensic pathology?
I can tell you that it's probably hundreds. I've given sworn testimony in 20 different states, in federal courts, for military tribunals, including the Air Force, the Army, the Coast Guard. I've also given sworn testimony before committees of the U.S. House and U.S. Senate, and additionally before the National Commission on Forensic Sciences.
Your Honor, this time the state moves to tender Dr. Downs as an expert in forensic pathology pursuant to the questions we just asked and the stipulation of parties.
Mr. Green?
Huh?
He's qualified as an expert.
Uh-oh.
What is the purpose?
I don't know what just happened there, y'all. There.
I guess the main purpose is to determine what happened to an individual, cause and manner of death. In addition, if there's any information to be gained in addition to specifically cause and manner, to gather that. If it's a case where there's evidence to be collected, to gather that. That would be, for example, photographs, if there are injuries, if there's trace evidence, to collect anything like that.
What does cause of death mean?
Cause of death is the initial event that set in motion the unbroken chain of events that ended in death. In other words, something happens, there's either it's immediate or there's a time, and then the person dies. So the cause is this over here that started that whole chain going.
What is manner of death?
Manner of death is the circumstances under which the cause happened. So there's 5 different possibilities for manner of death. Natural, self-explanatory, you have a heart attack, natural death. Accident, something unforeseen, reasonably unforeseeable. I could leave the courthouse and get hit by a bus. That's unforeseen. Suicide, death by your own hand. Homicide, death by the hand of another. And that can either be active or passive. For instance, neglect. Active neglect, that act is a homicide. And then finally, if you can't tell, undetermined.
Are autopsies only performed for homicides?
No, probably most of the cases we do these days would either be natural or accident.
When bodies are brought to the morgue for an autopsy, are they assigned a case number?
Yes, they are.
When a body is received, are you given any background information on the body?
Yes, I am.
Why is that information important?
Well, I mean, you've been to the doctor, and the first thing that happens to you when you go to the doctor is, why are you here? As a physician, I need to understand the questions
Come for a break.
asked so that I know what tests to perform, kind of an idea of what to look for, either to include or exclude. So it's critical that I have some kind of information. And even if I have no information, that does help me kind of a little bit tell me what I need to look for in this case. So the more information I get, the better.
Does the medical examiner's office have investigators?
Yes, we do.
What do they do?
They are my eyes and ears at the scene. Because there are only two of us who work at the ME's office here in Gwinnett, we can't go to all the scenes. So we have multiple different investigators who are highly skilled professionals who go to a scene, assess the scene, determine preliminarily what they think might be what happened, and then send the case in or decline it, because we don't bring in every single case. There are cases that don't need an autopsy. There are cases that don't even need an external examination. Then there are other cases that clearly need an autopsy in order to find out what happened.
Do the investigators document what they see when they go out to the scene?
Yes.
How do they do that?
They do that by means of photographs, multiple photographs, as well as a written report.
And do you review the photographs and the reports prior to doing an autopsy?
The report usually is not written by the time I do the autopsy. The photographs may or may not be reviewed before the autopsy. It really depends on the circumstances.
Can you walk the jury through the steps of conducting an autopsy in general?
Sure. So we've been through kind of the preliminary. I get a story. I get some history. And based on that history, I kind of set in my mind, okay, here's what I'm looking for. This is going to be an external exam, or this is going to be a full autopsy, and it's going to require lots of documentation. The case we're here about today is one of the latter. It's going to require a lot of documentation. So I go in, we open the body bag, pictures of the outside of the body, and then I start looking on the outside of the body to see if there's anything that I think is important. For instance, here, the body is in plastic bags. Okay, that's important, the fact that the body's in plastic bags. So we'll dissect away that layer. Then we'll look underneath that layer. Oh, there's ties around the waist area, the hips, and the arm is tucked under here. And there's another plastic bag tied around the waist. Document all of that. And then we'll kind of go through that process, removing if there's clothing, after I've looked at the clothing and determined whether or not there's evidence I think is important, we'll go through that. If the body is received wrapped in a sheet, we'll keep the sheet in a case like this, and that'll get transferred in evidence. And so it's a very methodical process. It takes a long time. The outside of the body, the skin is the biggest organ in the body. So believe it or not, usually the outside part of the examination is what takes the most time, because I'm very meticulous, very thorough. I look at everything. Once I get all of that external done, I've collected whatever external evidence. For example, a sexual examination kit, I might do that. Once all of that's completed, we'll then clean the outside of the body and then look again. Basically start over and go head to toe, looking for anything that might be there, front and back. Once I'm satisfied with that, I'll then proceed with an internal examination. And that's an incision, shoulder, down to the middle of the breastbone, and then down the front of the belly. From that, the rib cage is removed, or the front of the rib cage is removed. Examine all the organs in the body and dissect those out, usually one at a time, depends on the circumstances. If I need to keep something together, I will. If there's evidence there to be seen in the organs, like in this case, I'll take individual organ photographs. I'll collect, like in this case, if there's blood collected somewhere, I'll collect and measure that. During the course of this process, depending on what's available to me, I'll collect toxicology samples, so blood or urine, to look at to see if there are any drugs there. Once I complete that part of the examination, I do have an assistant who's helping me with the organ removal process. We're working side by side, but while I'm looking at the organs individually, they will be preparing the head for examination. So they'll make an incision between the ears and the back of the head and dissect the scalp away and basically flip it forward like this. So the scalp is reversed but laying over the face. Then using a saw, they'll make a circular cut around the skull, remove the brain. And of course, I'm here looking at the steps. If there's something to document or see, we got photographs because there's multiple people in the autopsy room with me. Once we complete that part of the process, the brain is removed, and then I look at the brain, and depending on the type of case, the airway. We may do that next to last or last. It just depends on the nature of the case. With the airway, we'll take this flap that was in the front of the chest and dissect that up. So the flap that was here where I made the incision down to the breastbone, we'll take that skin, dissect it back so it again lies over the face, and then remove all the neck structures except for the blood vessels in front, up to the tongue, including the tongue, and dissect all of that out.
That
I'll look at
is a lot of information.
Once I have looked at everything like that, I will take microscopic sections, and I may take those along the way if they're external injuries or internal injuries that I think I need to document with a microscope. I'll go ahead and take sections of those, and then I'll look at those microscopic slides, send the toxicology out. If there's anything else to examine, I'll do that. And ultimately, I'll end up with a written autopsy report.
Now we're going to get to the case at hand for today. Were you asked to perform an autopsy on Amari Nicole Hall in November of 2021?
I was, November 24th.
What background information did you receive when Amari arrived at the morgue?
Basically, the thumbnail sketch was there was this young girl, appeared to be very young, less than 10 years old, who was found in plastic bags in a wooded area, and she appeared to be malnourished. That's kind of the thumbnail sketch. There were multiple obvious injuries externally.
And was she assigned a case number?
She was.
What is that case number?
Give me 1 second. I blanked on the number as I'm sitting here. 1 second. That's 21G 2057.
I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibits 175 through 184, 186 through 193, 195 through 210, 212, 213, 215, 216, and 218 through 226. So run through these and then give them back to me.
This is interesting. Very interesting. Okay. I know. It just so fits. I know. Well, what happens in Haley Mouse is they start taking out organs one at a time, documenting their size by weight and their color and the fluid quantities if they should contain anything. Then they sit there and dissect them. You don't want me to continue. He looks like if I was going to have a movie, I would put him in that role, dressed just like that. The bald head, the black glasses, the bow tie, red, white shirt, blue jacket. I love it. I love it.
These are
I love it.
some of the photographs from the autopsy of Amari.
And I love his thoroughness. What time is it? Okay. I'm going to have to go in a little bit. I've got Adam.
175 through 184, 186, 193.
Y'all, I'm sorry. It's been a crazy day between doctor's appointment, heater breaking, tree falling, Ugh. Stupidly crazy. Stupidly. This is not a day I shall relish.
Admitted without objection.
And may I publish
Mm.
exhibits, Your Honor?
You may.
I'll be glad to curl up in bed tonight and get rid of today.
PowerPoint containing several of the state's exhibits as well as some diagrams that you believe will help explain the injuries in this case to the jury.
I did.
We have the HDMI input up, Your Honor.
It is.
Okay, just making sure.
Way ahead of you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. What information is contained on this slide, Dr.
The case number up at the top, 21G2057, Amari Hall.
Sorry, was there a question asked, Your Honor?
Date of birth of 10/30/13. Date of death, that's the date that she was pronounced, not the actual date that she died, was November 23rd of 21 and pronounced at a little before 1 p.m. I did my exam the next day at a little before 11:30 in the morning.
Candace.
Cause of death, multiple blunt force injuries, other significant conditions. Those are things that aren't reflected in the cause, but are also important in her death. And those other conditions were battered child syndrome, malnutrition, and the manner of death, homicide.
Can you define?
It is a Friday the 13th. I forgot about that.
That is a description to describe multiple wounds in multiple locations in multiple stages of healing. That is a child who has been abused with injuries in multiple different areas that happened at different times, so different episodes. And they're in multiple.
Oh, so this was not a one-time
in multiple different areas of the
experience.
body.
Poor baby.
What is a blunt force injury?
So there's several different big categories. A gunshot wound is a
Not
type of
mine.
injury. A fire injury, a thermal injury is a type of injury. Blunt force is by a blunt, a non-edged weapon. So a sharp force injury would be like a knife, glass, something like that. Blunt force would be like a baseball bat, a brick, any broad, flat surface. Doesn't necessarily have to be broad, but a flat surface. And there are three types of wounds that happen. There is a bruise, medically we call that a contusion, but it's the same thing. An abrasion.
Scratch.
Like when you fall on the sidewalk and skin your knee, that would be an abrasion. And the last type is, actually there's two others.
Scuffing of
they're
skin.
lacerations.
A cut.
Laceration is a physical tearing of the tissue, ripping of the tissue. So on skin, the skin wound would gape open.
Yep.
You can also lacerate bone. That's a fracture.
Mm-hmm.
You mentioned baseball bats when describing blunt force injuries. Could the floor be part of a blunt force injury?
Sure, it's a broad, flat surface, absolutely. Abrasion, like you fall and skin your knee, that would be an abrasion, a blunt force injury from the floor as the offending weapon.
Could hands and feet cause blunt force injuries?
Sure.
We're gonna go to the next slide. This is State's Exhibit 140.
Love.
So this is Amari's body.
I'd get
She's
home
in
and get myself a
plastic bags. You
nice
can
cup of
see,
something afterwards and
covering
a
her
bubble bath.
upper body down to just above her waist. At the waist area, you see another plastic bag that's tied around the waist, and within that, there's plastic about a yard length of black fabric that's been tied, involving that second plastic bag. And then the third plastic bag goes from the thigh level down and covers the feet. So she's been placed head to toe in two plastic bags.
Oh, man.
And they've been pulled away from the midsection, so you can see her butt would be towards us as we're looking at the picture. Her thighs would be going away from us. She's laying on her left side.
That'll work, my dear. Oh, that sounds great.
Of the same area we just looked at. Instead, we have now turned the picture. So if we were
Bring
looking at the
earplugs.
picture before with her butt in the foreground, we just turned the picture like this and walked in and got a closer picture. So her butt is now to my left and her thighs are at the bottom going to my right.
Yeah.
You can see that plastic bag that's tied around her
Take
waist. And then
earplugs.
the black cord, that 3 foot or, yeah, length of cord that's tied in that.
Dr. Downs, there's a pointer just under his monitor.
I,
here, so
I,
you might
I,
use that if-
my parents wouldn't allow me to go to dances because of their religious beliefs. I never went to a dance. Went to a banquet once. Wasn't allowed to dance
So as I mentioned, we want to
because the chaperones knew my mommy and daddy.
the fact that somebody
And because they knew my mommy and daddy, they would have told them that your daughter was dancing. And I would have gone to hell in a handbasket. He came off the mic. Sorry, guys, can't do anything about that. But I like this guy. He's got me intrigued.
is knotted and tied around, and the black cord is also knotted together. That took time and effort and thought. That didn't just happen.
Get back on the mic, dude. Go sit down.
And some scoring on the
I want to hear you.
at the bottom.
Amari, as far as we believe, her body was located, discovered the day before, right? November.
Oh,
Yes,
yes.
sir. I did the autopsy.
Do the
about
wobble,
11:30,
do all the
and
crazy
she was
old
found dead.
sprinkler,
12 probably found.
do the stuff of the 50s and 60s. Then go and I do stuff from every era.
Based upon your examination of her, can you put an approximate time frame on her death in relation?
We had a teacher that hated chaperoning so much. They showed up
I
in
would
pajamas.
really be hesitant to do that for a lot of reasons. One is that she's in plastic bags, so that hinders decomposition. It's November, so the temperature's gonna be important, hot, cold. She's in a wooded environment, so the sunlight coming and going, it would really take a lot more detail for me to be able to say when she died. In addition, I don't know if, because there's an interval, what the conditions were between when she died and when she was placed in this environment. That's not something I feel comfortable telling you a simple answer to.
Okay, could it?
You'll have fun. Why do you come off the mic?
It would depend. If she didn't have any refrigeration, for instance, if she's in a cold refrigerated room, that would slow down decomposition. I would really need to know more about the weather, the environment. I can tell you this, if all else being equal, she didn't appear to have a lot of decompositional changes. Instead, what she had was animal depredation.
Oh, come on, y'all.
Yes, sir.
That sucks.
Well, let me ask you this.
Why isn't your microphone on, dude?
To
Get the microphone.
isolation of the liver.
Get the mic.
Would that in and of itself have caused her death?
Not Amari's death, but if you took somebody in every other way, shape, and form like Amari and inflicted that liver injury to them, that person could die just from that liver injury, but that's not Amari. Amari had everything else going in that physiology we talked about with battered child syndrome.
So the lacerated liver, if untreated, that would not in and of itself have caused her death if the injury was left untreated.
Oh, get on the mic.
Again, you can't isolate in Amari's case one thing because it didn't happen that way. You have somebody who has this background who then has an injury inflicted on her. If you take somebody else who's not Amari, but just give them that liver injury, then that person could die with an untreated liver injury like that.
What would be the time frame for a person to die from the lacerated liver?
Again, exactly the circumstances like Amari, it's hard to say. If it's not her, but somebody with just that liver injury, I'm not a clinician. That is, I don't treat people. I can tell you that I would think a couple of hours would be probably pushing it. She had 120 milliliters, which is 4 ounces of blood in her belly. Her total blood volume for a kid of her weight, now she probably has less because of her malnutrition, but they would have 1.8 leaves.
Did I do that? My bad.
Getting healing underneath the skin, but the skin is not fully woven back together. So that's the difference, is the scar means this is old. The scab means we're still working on it. It's still in the process of healing.
And I realize every person, every human being is different from the next one, but generally speaking, how long does it take for a scab to occur?
It can happen very quickly when the wound is small and exposed to air. The blood's going to clot on the surface and can heal. I mean, I would say common experience would be the best way to answer that. You've seen those, but the thing is, you also have deeper wounds that heal more slowly because they are deeper and it takes more time. There are some wounds that don't get stitched back together. You stitch an open wound to bring the edges together to allow that fibrosis to happen underneath. The scab forms on top. Those heal very quickly. So those scabs don't last a long time versus an open wound, it takes longer. And I just can't give you a precise timeline.
Would it potentially be within a couple of days?
Depending on the type of wound, a deeper wound is not going to be a couple of days. It's going to be longer.
Okay, and again, knowing every person is different, how about in regards to a scar? Is there a particular time frame for a scar to
Where I
occur?
can tell you that it will be scarred, I don't think you can really do that. If you've got scabs.
Is that the radio show tool?
That then
Like
kind of sets
cars?
the clock back a little bit. Also, with
If
her
so, I have.
malnutrition, she's going to heal more slowly. So I really can't give you, I wish I
Yep.
could tell you, it's going to take 2 weeks. It's going to take 4 weeks. That wouldn't be accurate.
The malnutrition affects someone's skin,
It affects the entire body.
but specifically in regards to the skin, what's the effect of malnutrition on a person's skin?
Well, you're going to lose subcutaneous fat, which means the skin is going to be thinner, and you lose the immune response becomes impaired. So the white blood cells that come in to help with repair are going to not work as well.
Mm-hmm.
Be more susceptible to bruising?
I would say probably it would be more susceptible to bruising because you wouldn't have the structural integrity. You wouldn't have the subcutaneous fat. So yeah, I would say probably more susceptible to bruising. And also depending on what's missing, for instance, vitamin C, scurvy, that condition and others like vitamin K, clotting factors. Yeah, I would say probably more prone to bruising.
You also had mentioned in the direct, use the word fresh in regards to fresh injury or in the context of wounds and so forth. Can you elaborate a little bit when you use the word fresh in that context, what you're referring to?
Not to be smart in the answer, but it means not old. So I'll try to explain that a little better. Fresh would be anywhere from it just happened out to where the white blood cells, specifically a type of cell called a PMN, a neutrophil, that's the same cell. Those come in by a couple of hours. I expect to see those specific cells out to 2 to 3 days. I see different types of inflammatory cells and I see red blood cells breaking down. So when I say fresh, it's somewhere from that just happened
Y'all.
out to where I get the white.
Just FYI, suspect in the UniHealth CEO unaliving was not insured by that company. Interesting.
Blood cells, the neutrophils, and some other reactive changes, but I'm not seeing that second wave of inflammation coming in. So we're not talking 2 days.
2 days from the time, obviously, you're examining.
No, sir. The process, the clock stops when you die. So what I'm saying is, whenever these events, when these fresh injuries happened, was within that time frame of when she actually passed. So the clock stops when she passes.
Mm-hmm.
So within 2 to 3 days of her death, of her passing.
Correct.
And when you mentioned in your report, Dr. Downs, the manner of death being homicide, that doesn't equate to murder. It just equates to death at the hands of another.
That's correct. That's, murder is a legal term. We specifically don't use that word. I am not an attorney, don't pretend to be one, don't know much about the law at all. I know enough to ask a lawyer.
So that in and of itself just means death, when you put homicide, death at the hands of another.
Right, literally the word itself is homis, H-O-M-I-S, side, to kill. Homis is human or man. One man or one person kills another person. That's all it means.
And obviously, when you got involved in the case, you can't make a determination, speculate, do anything of that nature in regards of who or whom may have inflicted those injuries that you noted, correct?
No, sir, I don't speculate, and I do not identify perpetrators. That's not my job. My job is to tell you, this is what I saw. This is what happened to Amari. These are all the conditions that are there. And it's up to investigators to take it from there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
May the witness be excused.
Yes, sir. No objection.
All right, thank you, Dr. Downs, you're excused.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, sir. He's like, I'm out. Yes, I know what tools is. I'm just being a snot. Hello, it's Brit. Yep, something fishy about the whole thing. But what I hate is the microphones. Come on. Come on.
She's a nice person.
So you can't even hear them.
Whether or not the state by evidence has proven her guilt, either as individual or as a party to the crime.
I guess we're inverted watch.
Party to a crime in basic terms means doing something, helping, assisting, participating. And in going over all the evidence, the videos, I just heard Ms. Nizam say something about 2 voices on those videos. It's not a crime to talk. It's not a crime to speak. Party to the crime means doing something to help the person commit the crime. Classic example is liquor store robbery.
Stay on the mic. Okay. See, nobody's on the mic. We can't hear anything. Oh, this is so frustrating. Arr. Yeah, Zach. Yeah, we're old. Wow. Do we not have sound? I have sound everywhere. I am up 100%. I know. It's like they turn the sound off, or the microphones are so far away, they're not picking it up.
Just as any element of the offenses. Understand that malice is.
Yeah, there's no captioning. There's no nothing. Oy vey, that sucks, y'all. That stinks. Oh, why are they interviewing Judge Harry Foster? He's in Harris County? I may have to go to his court. I don't know anything really about him, so I'm going to pull that up and watch it later. I do want, oh, wrong one. I want, and I'm looking into it maybe next week. I don't know. I want to go and sit in San Antonio court systems. I want to go into sit into Judge Boyd's. I want to do a trial with her. I would love to sit in with her courts for a trial, not peddly stuff, for a trial. I'm definitely going to be there for the trial with the lady that never was found. Oh God, what's his name? So we're going to be there for that. So we're going to be doing all that kind of stuff next year. I think there's a case coming up in Austin I want to follow. Excuse me. I remember it. I never did it. I wasn't allowed to dance. Wasn't allowed to wear makeup. Couldn't go swimming unless it was all girls and no boys could see. Mixed bathing, we could get pregnant for mixed bathing. Couldn't dance because it leads to kissing, and kissing leads to babies. Yeah. But my twin brother, who I graduated a year before him because I worked my butt off, my twin brother turned 18, and they said, you're a grown man. You can go dancing all you want. You can do whatever you want. I'm like, wait a minute. And they go, well, he can't get pregnant. And I'm like, yeah, but he can get someone pregnant. That was like, parents, be careful what you put on your kids. It ain't cool. It ain't cool. And they're only kids once. They are only children once. Period. Never went to prom, homecoming. I marched in the band and then went home. I know, poor me, poor Ada, poor baby girl. Life is so. Okay, guys. I think the flu shot, the COVID shot, the shingle shot, and the pneumonia shot is starting to make me go. So we're going to sign off in a minute. But you know what? I didn't rebel in the manner that most kids did. My brother did. Okay, sorry, business. So, yeah, there's a balance, is guess what I'm getting to. There's a balance, but I respect their religious beliefs. I don't believe that way myself, but that's okay. All right, guys. Tomorrow, Saturday, won't be live. Sunday, I'll go live if something massive happens. We will be live on Sunday night for the Sunday Night Live. And then Monday, it's iffy. And then Tuesday is a no bueno. I've got a funeral unless something big happens in the morning. My sister's memorial is Tuesday. And I'm just not, I probably won't go live Tuesday. I need to take care of myself and family that day. So I will see y'all guys Sunday. Thank you so much for this week. Thank you for being there for me. Thank all of y'all for walking through this horrible journey that we all must go through at some point in our lives. But it doesn't make it any easier knowing that. But having you guys give me cyber hugs and through the internet giving me love, I appreciate it. Y'all have a fabulous weekend. Enjoy your family, and I will see you Sunday night. Blessing. Thanks for watching. Please comment, like, share, and most importantly, subscribe. I hope you have an awesome day. Till next time, take care.